key and all that? Interesting. Yeah, he was laying. Oh, son of a gun. Look at that. He was laying on the the dog's coat because she
Oh,
wasn't here
uh-huh.
and he missed her. So he laid on her coat, which I just thought was pretty darn.
Well, they sense smells, scents, and the scents they like, they try to get near. My cat Tommy lies in places where he picks up my scent because he appreciates it. He likes that. You're talking to a cat psychologist.
How was he doing, by the way?
He's right here on my lap, chilling out,
The real boss.
looking, yeah, yeah, looking up at me affectionately and in his supplicant way. Pets are such a great thing.
Have you considered
As
at all?
pardon?
Have you considered at all if you are coming to state committee in December? Oh, we are live
Well,
now, by the way. We're live all over the internet.
can you and I talk there?
FYI. I would just say
And
I
I
would
like it.
that I would see you. I know
Well,
it's a little bit of a
I
drive,
wasn't.
but it's the
I
endorsement
wasn't.
meeting, and I'm sure you would enjoy it.
Well, I wasn't going to come, but I talked to Sandy Wolf, and she twisted my arm and told me how to be there. So I
Fine.
think I probably will show up. And that's just for Saturday.
Oh yeah.
I'm not coming.
Well,
Right.
they're all the candidates will be up at the hospitality room Friday night.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not going to be there. I don't do night driving very well. I have no place to stay over. I can't afford a hotel room, so I'm going to come up Saturday only. Let's see if I can find somewhere reasonably priced to park up there. I do wish they had them in the suburbs rather than downtown.
Kind of run through our sharing quick before Facebook puts a stop to us. I suspect they will do relatively short. Or some good.
How about I just mute and go off and just listen?
Well, oops, I didn't mean to do that. Oops.
Did I get it wrong? Are you going on the air at 6 or were you on at 5?
That's 6. That's 6.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I'll hang
Doing
on until then.
doing the Facebook bit right now.
The pre-work.
Right.
Real quickly, is it your impression they're going to endorse at this meeting?
There will definitely be some. I don't know if there will be all, but I definitely.
We're talking about December meeting.
Yeah.
Well, what the hell's the point of endorsing before you even know who the candidates are that are filed?
We know the candidates are, and petitions start like immediately after that. Their petitions are going to start in January, right after the holidays.
Yeah, I heard that. Still, my opinion, we shouldn't endorse until we know who all's running. It's what Schuylkill County did here all the time. I moved up here, I was flabbergasted. I couldn't believe anybody do that, but they did. They had their candidate choice picked out before the petitions even circulate. I'm
Okay,
hoping that's come to an end.
gonna make one last run and then it's time to start.
Okay, well, I'll get off and I'll just listen. Okay, have a great one.
Frankie. Oh, goodness. Oh, wait. Okay. We are under 60 seconds. Okay, 6:01. Let's kick this kid off here. 3, 2,
Do you want a man for president who's seasoned through and through, but not so doggone seasoned that he won't try something new? A man who's old enough to know enough to do. To you, it's up to you. It's strictly up to you. Do you want a man with spirit who is not afraid to fight? A loyal man who brings a job a fresh new point of view. Well, it's up to you. It's up to you. It's strictly up to you. And do you deny to any man the right he's guaranteed to be elected president, no matter what his creed? It's to which we must be true. So it's up to you. It's up to you. It's strictly up to you. Do you like a man who answers straight, a man who's always fair? We'll measure him against the others, and when you compare, you cast your vote for Kennedy and the change that's over too. So it's up to you, it's up to you, they say it's up to you.
Welcome, welcome, welcome from my humble second bedroom here in the Saucon Valley, part of the Lehigh Valley in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, part of these United States, North American continent, Western Hemisphere, on this planet Earth. The only one. We have third rock from the sun in the Terran solar system, part of the Milky Way galaxy. This is the Kennedy Effect live with you for the 19th of November 2023. And please, please, please let me be among the first to wish you all, whether you are watching live or watching on the recorded version of the program, to wish you the happiest, most peaceful, the most joyous, relaxing, family-filled, joy-filled Thanksgiving that you could possibly enjoy. We will always seems a bit weird when I start the program with a negative. It's never my intention to do that, of course, but we will not be with you next week because of the Thanksgiving holiday. This, if you are familiar with our program, we're entering our, I think this is our fourth holiday season now. And the holiday seasons always get very, very choppy with programs. We like to be with you every week. Sometimes technical things get in the way. Sometimes health gets in the way. This past summer, we took an extended break because it was just wasn't going well. And then we got back on track. And so we've done some traveling. We've had some weeks off for that, but it's always a very choppy schedule in the holiday period. So we will not be with you next week for the Thanksgiving holiday. Christmas and New Year, of course, we won't be with you. And then we get right back to work on January 8th for a sustained, what we hope will be a sustained series of programs. So not to start with a negative, but just to give you a little program update straight out of the gate. We're here tonight. Our plan is to take you straight up to 9 p.m., take you straight up to Sergeant Mack. And then next week, we just simply want you to stay away from unplug. How about that? Unplug from your devices for a weekend and spend it with family and enjoy what is a, uniquely American holiday, the Thanksgiving Day holiday, and enjoy it with friends, family, and whomever you choose to surround yourself with. Or if you choose to keep PJs on for 4 days and watch Christmas movies, do that too, but make it a safe and enjoyable weekend. And let us all from the entire crew here at the TCP Media Group, at Ghost Claw Entertainment, at hot101.net, and everybody at the Kennedy Effect wish you, your family, all who are important to you, a very peaceful and happy Thanksgiving. Wherever you are on Facebook, we have shared the program to, I'm not even sure because I got blocked in the middle of my sharing, which is different than happened last week. So or the last time that we were with you. So I'm not exactly sure why this week was different. but it is what it is. We got out to about 96 different places until before we got blocked. So if I wait for another hour, I'll be able to get out to the rest of the groups, to every single group, public or private, large or small, to every individual, every page, everyone that allows us to be part of your corner of the Facebook universe. We thank you so very much. We could not do it without you. We could not be here if you are not there. We appreciate it very, very much. And I have noticed in the last few weeks that the delayed approvals, as the week goes on, that groups continue to approve us to allow to post onto their pages, and we're deeply appreciative of that as well. Simply because we are on with you live does not mean the program disappears when we turn the microphones off. It's there, stays there all week. And of course, if you ever miss any of our program, you can go to our YouTube channel, where we are also live right now. So we got 100 places on Facebook. We got the YouTube channel up live. Wherever it's easier for you to catch us, you catch us. Wherever it's easier for you to comment to us, you do that as well. We appreciate you all very much. Every single individual who listens, watches the program with us live or on the recording throughout the week and months. We appreciate it very, very much. Hot101.net, one of the originators, one of the foundational keystones of global internet radio. We are proud to be part of the Hot101.net family. If you don't know how to listen to Hot101.net, then you haven't been listening to me. That's for darn sure. Hot101.net, our name is our web address. If you can connect to the internet anywhere on or around this planet, you can listen to Hot101.net. Any type of device, desktop, laptop, tablet, phone, Bluetooth. You can Bluetooth it to speakers, headphones, earbuds. You can Bluetooth it in the car. Use our apps, Apple App Store for Apple devices, Google Play Store for Android devices, and the TuneIn radio app. Go up to the search bar, type in hot101.net, and you are listening. The apps are pretty amazing. You don't need anything. No credit card, no fingerprint, no blood donation, no firstborn. Don't have to log in, don't have to create a profile, any of that. You open it and it plays. It's that simple. It's one of the great things about our app. And of course, you can also tell Alexa to play hot101.net. We are currently on Ghost Claw Productions and the TCP Media Group right now as well. And again, at the risk of being repetitive, our YouTube channel is live right now. And let's not forget our sponsor, the PayGive app. PayGive, www.paygive.org. We all buy things. When we do, lawfully, we pay for them, right? We pay for goods and services, and we pay for, that's just how it works. The PayGive app is a financial exchange app. It's a money app. When you make purchases, when you transfer funds, you can designate a percentage of those funds to go to a cause or even a candidate of your choice. There are animal charities, veterans charities, children's charities, health-related charities like the American Red Cross, American Cancer Society, American Lung Association. Whatever is important to you, there is a charity registered with PayGive. The PayGive app, when you buy things, you pay for them. When you buy things, you have to pay for them. Why not give while you do it? www.paygive.org. Let's get to our guest. We are very, as the header of the program on both YouTube, excuse me, I'm stuffy today. I'm not sure what's happening. It was like spring here today in the Lehigh Valley. It really felt like spring. At one point, we got in the car and it was 65 degrees. And I don't think it was like forecast to be that high. I really made a bad mistake in my life. Should have really gone to school to be a television meteorologist. It's one of the only jobs where you can be wrong nearly 100% of the time and kind of keep moving up and make more money all the time. But they got it wrong and I got it wrong. I dressed warm. I'm stuffy. I don't know what the heck is happening today, but anyway, we're here. And we've been very, very fortunate to be able to reschedule a guest that we had scheduled last, I think it might have even been back into September. And that is the senior pastor at the Straight to the Heart Ministries in Philadelphia. Pastor Gia Clinton is here with us to discuss one of my all-time favorite topics in this program, which of course is the intersection of religion and politics. But we'll be talking about, since the pastor hails from Philadelphia, we'll be talking about the recent election results, a historic new mayor in Philadelphia, and the city's what seems to be ever-present scourge of gun violence. And we plan to cover all that as best we can in the time, in whatever time Pastor is welcome or is willing to give to us. So, Pastor Gia Clinton, Senior Pastor Gia Clinton, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much. It's my honor to be here and to be a part of the discussion.
As a first time, and well, first off, I want to say thank you to you for being really flexible and being really willing to be able to reschedule and to come back and visit us. Since we kind of found each other in this electronic universe, you're someone that I've been very, very eager to welcome here and to bring into the program. So I'm very thrilled that you're here, genuinely, because our discussions, well, they're online discussions, but off the program, offline, if you will, have been interesting, they serious, and it's discussions that I really wanted to bring to this program. So I'm really thrilled that you're here. As a first-time guest, I would ask you the very same opening questions that we ask every new guest of the program, and that is, who is Senior Pastor Gia Clinton, and how did you get here?
Well, I would have to say that I am a PK's kid. My parents are pastors. My grandparents. It was kind of the family business. My mother was head of Woman to Woman Ministries International. She's Dr. Linda Emma Cuff, and she had a real burden for women's ministry. And growing up, my father was a assistant pastor for years, and he, we and my sisters and we were part of the whole process. We would go around and sing, and I was mom's adjutant, I guess that's the word. So I kind of got to learn the business. Mom did TV and radio. That's how I got into TV and radio, because I learned it from her. And I actually started in women's ministry and ended up becoming a full-time pastor. I also had a burden for women's ministry and the plight of women, and the disadvantages that women go through, the struggle, and the struggle is real, and having an endeavor to change lives and to make a difference in Christ. And so, they say pre-K's kids can be troubled. I was kind of the one that was I don't know, I guess I was called at a young age. I just knew that this is where God wanted me to be, and he wanted me to make a difference. So here I am.
Being a student of history, I certainly don't have a doctorate in it. I'm not a historical expert by any means, but I do think that Americans, our government, the legal system, society as a whole, can and should be learning an awful lot more from history than we do. It would seem to me, from a historical standpoint, that this might be the most interesting time, and interesting, I don't even know if is a word that covers it well enough. Maybe even disturbing might be more accurate, where religion and politics have intersected, where religion, in my opinion, no one ever need agree with me. You don't need to agree with me, but that religion has now turned into a tool, into a method of not just frightening people, but angering them all at the same time, unfortunately, not into good actions. I have a feeling that religion has been monetized. It's been monetized. It's been prophetized. It's been turned into a business. I know when you said the family business, we mean that in sort of an allegorical standpoint, but not, not a mega global corporation standpoint.
No.
The same way that the family business is passed down. It could be a cleaners or a restaurant or whatever, or landscaping business, whatever it might be. But big religion has turned in, big business religion has turned into a big business, corporate religion. I've told the story on the program about Joel Osteen when Hurricane Harvey, I think it was, hit Houston, and it rained over Houston for 4 straight days. And his quote unquote church is an old sports arena, and the city and state asked him to use it as a shelter And he said, absolutely not. I don't want those people in my church. As he is now a billionaire. Pat Robertson, who recently passed away, is a billionaire. He died a billionaire. We see these TV priests talk about, God says I need a new corporate jet, folks. So it seems to me that we're at our most interesting, quite possibly the most interesting intersection and usage of religion for politics, quite possibly since founding of the Republic. Am I wrong? Do you agree? Do you not agree? What is
I absolutely wholeheartedly agree. It's what's happening is unprecedented, and it does line up with what has been predicted in Bible prophecy. It talks about in Matthew, the book of Matthew, I believe it's the 10th chapter, talked about the love of many waxing cold and men becoming lovers of themselves, lovers of pleasure. It wasn't exempt. The church was not exempt from that. In fact, the organized church that we're seeing today, I would dare say, is not what God intended it to be. With, people, I mean, I've had parishioners say to me, I was at this other church and they're requiring me to show them my mortgage or my life insurance. And my tithe is now become, a part of my life insurance asset. That is not scriptural. The tithing, the Bible says, what did they say? Bring ye all tithes to the storehouse that there may be meat in my house. It was for the poor and the needy and the widow. It wasn't for a jet plane. It wasn't for, taking care of a pastor and his family and all that. I mean, that's nice if it's able to do that. But I really feel like, as a pastor, I work. I have a full-time job. I hemorrhaged more money as a pastor than I've ever had, giving to the poor, feeding the needy, having after school programs for underprivileged children. We are called to a standard of giving and service. And you don't see that anymore. And it totally lines up with what Bible prophecy has been saying regarding just people becoming cold and out for themselves and becoming easily offended. If you notice, you have to be careful what you say at all times because people get easily offended. The Bible talks about that. It talked about the war in Israel. Everything that's happening it's all lining up with what's to come and what's been predicted thousands of years ago. So I think we're here. It seems like we are at the point where we're starting to see Bible prophecy start to come alive in many regards. And it is unprecedented. It is a little scary. It can be disturbing to watch.
Why have so many Christians, and I will take a near so slightly risk to focus on the quote unquote modern evangelical movement.
Mm-hmm.
Why have so many Christians forgotten the Sermon on the Mount?
Because the love of many has truly waxed cold, even in the church, especially in the church. I've seen more sermons where preachers are using profanity. They're calling themselves motivational speakers. We're no longer preachers. They're about the dollar. They're about the getting rich, all of which is totally against what Christ stood for, why he came, why he died. So it is interesting to see that a whole new doctrine has been created aside from what the real Bible intended, what the purpose of the Bible and what the purpose of Christ had intended it to be. I mean, people are very cold and and I'm speaking in the church. I mean, and a church is like a hospital. It's full of sick people, but the shepherd isn't supposed to be sick. If you're sick and the shepherd's sick and you've got pretty much a pandemic, how can anybody get well if everybody has the same mindset? If nobody is willing to step out and say, hey, we need to love one another. Everyone is entitled to their opinion. It's okay. I think we've forgotten the principles of love. And I don't see it coming back anytime soon. It's unless there's something drastic that happens, it's just going to continue.
You were naked and you clothed me.
That's right.
I was hungry and you fed me. But Lord, we have never seen you in such a condition. Those, I'm paraphrasing badly, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Pastor, I'm paraphrasing really badly to a
Oh,
pastor.
He said, if you've done it to the
But
least
those,
of your brothers.
as you have done to the least of us, you have done unto me. It would seem
Exactly.
to me, and it might be a drastic oversimplification. If I'm guilty of it, you tell me. That is, at the end of the day, the essence of Christianity and the essence of Christ's message. Turn the other cheek, love your enemy, shelter your neighbor.
Yes.
And we've forgotten all of that for what has become, well, let me say that for the next question. We've forgotten all of that. It in a chase for in a chase for greed. When Christ himself said it is easier, for a camel to pass through the eye of the needle. The
Then a
the
rich man is to enter into heaven.
the trader, I always remember the scene from Jesus of Nazareth, which I've always taken to be I'm a very visual learner. I don't read well. It's very difficult for me to read. I'm a visual learner, and Jesus of Nazareth has always been my guidepost of, a rather accurate vision of the Gospels. And I'm remember on the road to the Sermon of the Mount, the trader, the very rich trader, merchant, that stops Jesus and said, "How, Rabbi, how do I get into heaven?" And Jesus looks him up and down and says, "Give away everything you have. Give it to the poor. For you cannot serve two masters,
That's right.
God and money." So
That's
why
right.
does the evangelical movement and those that claim to be part of it, frighteningly an increasing percentage of people, how are they missing the point? How is the weekly quote unquote evangelical churchgoer not making the connection that the leaders of said movement are simply getting rich on their backs and trying to tell them how to vote?
It's not just getting rich on their backs. They're they're getting rich on the backs of poor people who really can't afford to give or to, you know what I mean? They don't have it. And the interesting part is the Bible talks about us building treasures in earthen vessels, that we're not to build treasures in earthen vessels. We are to be preparing people to go home. The Bible says to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. We're supposed to be heaven bound. I mean, all the gospel songs all talk about us being heaven bound and, you know, getting people ready and bringing in the sheaves, this kind of thing. But for some reason, there is a lust that has just swept through the church, and they have decided that no matter how bad this world becomes, I'm going to get my slice of the pie. I'm not a giver that way. I'm not going to, I do my part for the poor. I need a jet plane. I want to have diamonds and I want to have this and that. The gospel was not made for that. We're supposed to, what did he say? Go out, our commission, the Great Commission. Go out into all the world and preach the gospel of Jesus Christ in every language, every tongue. Our commission is to go out and preach the gospel, to win souls. The Bible says he that winneth souls is wise. Well, if you have a place and your church is cold and it's not welcoming, and all you talk about is money, people aren't going to want to come. The average person is struggling and they don't want to hear, well, if you give me your rent money, you won't struggle as much because then God will see that you gave me your last. They're being manipulative, and it's just not what God intended it to be. Who are we to decide who can be saved and who can't? Who can come in a church and who can't? Who are we to decide who's worthy and who's not? We have taken the place of servant and become judge, jury, and executioner. And it's just not what the Bible intended. It's not what God intended. And many preachers who feel the way that I do are afraid to say anything, but I am not.
So why, at the risk of being very repetitive, which I can be on this program,
Mhm.
why do you suppose that what I do believe in my heart, and I want to believe in my heart, largely are good, decent human beings who are attending these churches each week, and probably more than once a week? They're probably going during the week and, donating food or whatever they might be doing. A pastor at our church today just asked for volunteers to decorate the church for Christmas and build the nativity. So we'll be doing that soon. How are they missing it? How are they not sitting in the pews of these churches and kind of looking at each other going, I couldn't afford my insulin, but pastor's looking for but Mr. Olstein's looking for a new jet. Wait a minute. Something's just not clicking here. Why is it that you suppose that misfire is happening?
Because the reality is that people who attend church are sheep, and they're looking to their shepherd for guidance. And once you've settled in a church, even if you see things are wrong, the average person won't say anything because well, I'll just pray about it and maybe God will change it, or I'll just, I'm just going to just mind my business and just go along with it. Or this is just the way it is. And that's not the way it is. The average person just wants to fit in and just wants to be, you know what I mean? I'm just going to go to church, hear the word, go home. I don't want to get involved. I can see what's going on, but I'm just going to, and that has to do with the love of many waxing cold, and it has also to do with them being afraid to being thrown out of a church, or if I say anything, they're going to ostracize me. I'll be punished. This is not what God intended a church to be. Where's the love? The Bible says, if a brother be overtaken in a fall, ye who are spiritual, restore such a one in meekness and in love. And love is the missing element to what's happening in the church. I mean, it has become a very hostile and hateful place in many, many congregations. You got people fist fighting in church. You got pastors standing in the pulpit cursing. That is not of God. Oh, let's not forget the twerking and the line dancing and the this and the that. The Bible says, love not the world, neither the things that are in the world. When a church embraces the world and not Christianity and not the precepts of what God is teaching, that's when you find that you can't tell the difference. When I go in a church, I should be able to see and feel the presence of God versus, it looks like a club, or I get the same feeling if I was in a bar. You should be able to feel God's presence. You should be able to feel his love. And you should not have to worry about, oh, I only have $10. Well, if I don't put it in church because they're going to come and shake the collection plate in my face, and if I don't do it, they're going to single me out. I mean, that's ridiculous. How can you worship that way? And whether a person has $1 to put in church or $50, the widow's mite, she put a penny in there, and the Lord said she gave more than everybody, because she gave what she could afford. She gave what she had. So it's just a horrible thing to watch. And a lot of people have pulled out of churches because they feel like I could just watch it on TV and just not deal with it at all. And it's unfortunate because, we're supposed to not forsake ourselves the assembly of the saints, but where are the saints?
6:30. We're already a half hour in to our program. How quick did that go? Wherever
Wow.
on Facebook, we've shared the program to just under 100 different places. We always encourage you to share the program wherever you believe that it is appropriate and the places that it's not. Send it to the people that need to see it. We thank you for allowing us to be part of your Facebook universe, your groups, public or private, big or small, your own personal pages, whatever it is. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We could not do it without you. Our home group Facebook page is That Other Side of Information. We are live there now. And of course, on my own feed, Jeff Kennedy, we are live on our YouTube channel, also called That Other Side of Information as well. If you ever miss our program, best place to catch up is our YouTube channel, That Other Side of Information. Hot101.net, our name is our web address. If you can connect to the internet, you can listen to Hot101.net, Apple App Store, Google Play Store for Android, and the TuneIn Radio app, and you can tell Alexa to play Hot101.net. The TCP Media Group from Lancaster, PA, and our sponsor, the PayGive app. When you buy things, you have to pay for them. Why not give while you do it? Our guest is Senior Pastor. I keep forgetting the senior part. You should have put that there. I should have put that there. Who is calling me already when I'm not taking calls? I wasn't prepared to take calls yet, but hey, you were kind enough to call, so let's have a go.
Well, Jeff, you know who this is. And I would like to say to the good pastor,
I will
you
let
know,
me say to the good pastor first. I'm allowing the call to sneak in, Pastor, before we were ready to take them because this is my father-in-law, and if I don't, he'll yell at me and be mean. I'm kidding. He's not going to be mean. He's never mean, but it gets special family dispensation. So please, Dad, talk to the pastor.
my dear lady, it's fantastic. Jeff would tell you, I was basically raped and went to Catholic school, did the elder boy thing. My mother wanted me to become a priest. I never made it because I asked questions. And I've come to my own personal belief religion was taught to me as one does not ask questions. If you do, you're not strong in your faith and you're going to go to hell. And it just amazes me. I live up here in central Pennsylvania, a lot of fundamentalist people, and I don't want to challenge their religion, but I had one woman look at me and said, you know what? I know you don't go to church, but she says, have you accepted the Lord Jesus Christ as your Savior? I said, yes, I have. Are you sure? I said, yeah, I'm pretty sure, man. She said, well, it doesn't seem you have a personal relationship. I said, whoa, 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 whoa. I said, there's the word that gets me. I said, it's personal. It's between him and me. What are you doing? And she said, well, in the Bible it says, in the Bible it says, in the Bible it says. I said, well, I'll quote you these parts too, and they just walk away. I mean, I have to agree with you. I don't chastise anybody in their church, but I separated from Catholic Church because I was kind of like being told that I was going to be assessed how much I needed to give. I should look at it as my tax from the church, and I'm looking at the Pope, and he's got Prada shoes. If you say something, you're immediately, shunned. Don't talk to him. Why? He doesn't understand. He questions, And I just, it is strange when I'm listening to what you were saying. So like a lot of it you want to look at and go, you read the Bible. Yeah. What part? Because I got to tell you, I never got that one. I missed it, So it was very interesting and good to hear what you were saying.
Amen.
Could she answer one question for me? Now, Jeff knows that when I die, I want to ask this question because, being an older boy and all that, I had to read the Gospels and the epistles, but I never understood this one. A rich man is having a wedding feast. Nobody comes. So he tells the servants, go out in the street, bring these people in. And they bring him in. And the man is looking about, and he looks at the one guy and he says, where's your wedding garment? He says, I don't have one. They bind him, beat him, and throw him out in the street. And the good word says, it proves that many are called, but few are chosen. And this is what could get me in trouble at church. I'd go, but the guy was walking down the street. He did, I came up to him and said, do you want to go to a wedding feast? Is it free? Yeah, okay, I'm going. And then he gets out on the street. I'm sure there's a lesson there, but it's just, when people say, well, you don't fully understand it. Okay, explain it to me. I'm open,
Well,
enjoyed
if
with.
we're talking about the wedding feast where all these people were invited and no one came. Remember, it was so terrible. And the master of the house became angry and he says, listen, he says to the servants, go out into the highways and byways and just extend invitations. Tell them to come. Anybody's welcome. He's saying all are welcome. You know what? The stuffed shirts that I invited didn't show up. But here I have prepared a banquet and a feast, and my guests didn't show up. Let's invite everybody. Let everybody come. Let everybody come in and partake of this feast.
But that one poor guy, where's your wedding gown? I don't have one. And they threw him out. But they had said, go get him, bring everybody in. And they threw this guy out. Many are called, a few are chosen. I'm kind of looking at my priest going, okay, when I die and get up there, I got to ask for clarity on this one.
Yeah, because it seems that if the gentleman was a part of the wedding party and he wasn't dressed accordingly, that may have been why he was cast out. In other words, if it was a wedding feast and he's part of the wedding party, it's almost the same principle as a preacher. Okay, so a preacher's holding service and he's not dressed for service, or he's not prepared to preach, he's not prepared for service, but all these people, we've invited all these people and he doesn't have a sermon. Well, what are you doing here? What are you good for? This is supposed to be about the feast. This is you're part of the party. You're part of you're the head table. So I think it's kind of the same, and it's interesting that you say that. It is kind of the same principle, I would say, with pastors and their congregations, or pastors, or preaching, period. If I show up to some place and I'm supposed to be a preacher and I'm not prepared, then I can be cast out. I mean, what am I going to say to people if I'm not uttering God's word? If I'm not appropriately attired, meaning equipped with my Bible, prepared for a word. He was a part of the party, or the wedding feast. He wasn't a passenger. He wasn't a guest, in other words. And so if you're part of the group that's inviting the parties and a guest in, and you're not dressed appropriately, then you're not on your post. You're not doing your job. And I think that, if we approach church the same way and preachers the same way, I think that we would have a lot less chaos. I love your point. I love what you said. You really brought on a good point. You know what? And when I get to heaven, I'm definitely going to ask God the same place. Were we on the nose with this, Lord? I mean, is it the same principle with pastors and ministers? If you're not appropriate, if you're a part of it, and you're supposed to be a part of God's house, and the guests come in and you're not prepared, should you be allowed to stay? A good.
I used to, that's when I'd be second grade, and we'd see those big old schools with the windows that you could open and the whole class could jump out. You'd hear an ambulance go by, and the nun or the instructor would say, "Let us pray for the soul of that man. May God give him grace and bring him back to good health, even if he's a Jew." And I'm in second grade, and I'm sitting there thinking, yeah, but Jesus was Jewish. And I asked that question, and he said, well, yes, he was. But upon his death, he became a Christian. Uh-huh. Okay. So if you're in an ambulance and you're a Jew, I'm thinking to myself, you're dead. Well, I wonder who else is, expelled, and I'd ask a couple more questions, and I'd end up in the Mother Superior's office.
Well, see, I understand, because I too went to Catholic school. So I understand. I did ask a few questions myself.
Oh, you never ask questions, Like my daughter once said when I never tried to influence kids. They could be whatever they want, But they had questions, and one time he asked one, and she kind of barked at him. She said, kind of like God's stormtroopers, aren't they? I said, yeah. But I mean, I've seen people around here that, oh, yes, hey, how are you? Would you attend our church? Well, wondering, but I'm Catholic. Oh. Well, the light of love and God just went out of their eyes.
Exactly. And it shouldn't matter.
I have neighbors and friends who tell me it's not the actions you do, but, have you accepted Jesus Christ? And then here we go again, Is he your personal savior? I talk to him every Sunday. What about you? I use Jeff will tell you, I use a little bit of humor when the anger is like, this just does not get, I'm just rambling, but I've been.
No, I agree with your point entirely, because what you're saying is that, the separation, even back then, the separation with Jews and Catholics and Christians, when we're all supposed to be one people, we're all supposed to be able to share the love of Christ. And it shouldn't matter whether you're Catholic or Protestant or Jew or Christian. His love, it expands to everyone. It extends to everyone. He said, go out into all the world. It is not like he didn't know that there were Jews or Catholics or Protestants. Everyone should be experiencing his love, his presence. If God is love, then his love
Sometimes
extends to
people grab
everyone.
the Bible when they start that, and I said, well, wasn't there a passage in there where he was sitting by a well and asked a Sumerian woman to give him drink? And I said, ooh, I remember from Sunday school, that was a big no-no in a Jewish faith, and you just don't do that,
Yes.
you know. And they look at me and they go, well, that was that. But in Matthew 12, 16, 13, well, you can fish through that book for whatever you want. You're going to find something to support or refute what you have, but, you know.
Pastor, isn't it as simple as Christ's instructions to the disciples when he goes to the desert and says, "Go and make children of all nations"?
That's right. That's right. When we talk about going out into the world and preaching the gospel to every nation, to every tongue, that means he doesn't care whether they're Protestant, Jews, Gentiles, Muslim, everybody should experience his love. And everybody, when you come across a Christian, you know that they're a Christian. Like the woman at the well, your father-in-law gave the example of the woman at the well. Well, she was unworthy as far as everyone else was concerned. She was cast out, but that's who he came for. The broken, the prodigal, the rebel, the weak, the people that no one feels is worthy. He came to receive that which was lost, the Bible says. So there is no one righteous, no, not one. And if that be true, then everyone should have an opportunity to experience his love. Everyone should have an opportunity to experience his peace and his grace.
Is that what makes the rise in anti-Semitism, the lack of acceptance of other faiths? Even Pope Francis himself has called the Jewish faith the fathers, our elders almost. I'm forgetting the exact word that he used. He called the Jewish faith the fathers of Christianity, the elders to our senior brothers, I think is the word he used, our elder brothers.
Mm-hmm.
They came first. And, Dad mentions that Christ was a Jew. He celebrated, the Last Supper was a Passover Seder. He did
That's
not,
right.
it wasn't simply because the crowds that were welcoming him to Jerusalem on Palm Sunday dropped palms in front of him. It wasn't Palm Sunday yet, as we know it. It was to celebrate Passover. It would seem to me that as we continue to talk about this modern evangelical movement, that it really has lost, and sadly, I think possibly intentionally lost, so much of the message of Christ. I wanted to ask you, Dad, did you have more to say, or can I move on?
No, go right ahead, because I was going to say what I found exceptionally thrilling to listen to the pastor, the lady, is that a lot of people to me look like their faith and their religion is a race to the end. I gotta have all this so that when I cross the line and it's all over with, he looks at me and goes, check, you got this, check, you got this, check, you got this, check, you got this. And, I said, well, live now and do what you can. Do what all you can, Why do you have to worry about the end? Oh, no. That's what you got to do. That's what you're looking at. That's what you're focused on. And I'm thinking, man, it sounds like church has become a football game,
Exactly.
Fourth quarter, it's fourth down, 2 to go, and I can run over that guy and smash his face, whether you're Jew or Islamic or Hindu or whatever. It doesn't matter as long as I cross that line and I'm in.
Wow.
One woman.
It's true. Because he said, many are going to stand before him and say, did I not prophesy in your name? Did I not do this? Did I not do that? Did I do all these works? And he's going to say, depart from me, you workers of iniquity. I never knew you. And why would he say that? Because he looks at the heart. He looks at the motivation. He looks at why you're doing what you're doing, as well as what you're doing. And if your heart isn't toward loving others and bringing about, salvation and spreading his love, then what are you doing? Paul said, without love, I'm but a sounding brass and a tinkering cymbal.
I'll let the one that gets me, and that's an iron talk about is abortion. I would not like to see anybody killed for any other reason. But I understand the conditions that push a man or woman towards that. And when these people say, well, I've been given $10,000 to make it illegal, I said, well, that's wonderful. But why does it exist? Why would somebody do that? Is it because they don't have a job? Is it because they can't feed their family? Are they a single mother? Does she feel pressure? I said, if you took care of the cause, the symptom itself will go away.
Exactly.
Or
Exactly.
when you come down to the lesser number of people, just say, I don't want to be bothered with the kids, so I'm getting rid of it. What about child care? Does your church give any money to child care? No. Well, then what you're doing is you're sitting in the church throwing $2 in for the abortion going, hey, look at me. I've done my work for Christ, and I got to get home. The Eagles are on.
You sure you're not a preacher? Because I hear God's message in there. I hear God speaking.
I can tell you, I've heard him preach under different circumstances.
Yes, I definitely hear the Holy Spirit, and it is a shame. Abortion has been a hot topic, and they've given all these reasons why it should be allowed. But the truth of the matter is, babies are humans. It's a human life, and it deserves a right to live. I mean, if that be true, my parents, decided, well, we got the money's tight, let's just get rid of this one. They'd have gotten rid of a preacher. It's who decides, who has a right to decide who lives and who dies? Not even a mother should have a right to decide if a child has a right to live. If God has placed that child in you, I mean, I can see if the child is dying or if the child was ill and it's detriment to the mother. They had to take the baby because the mother's going to die or something like that. That's a little different. But I mean, to use abortion as a means of, not getting pregnant, let me get that morning after pill. I don't know what's going on. Come on. Society has fallen into a place where we don't even value the life of a child. And that's scary. It's really scary to think that we fall into that.
I look at people and say, look, it's not like I'm saying kill the child, it's an inconvenience or something. But now that you've gotten rid of Roe versus Wade, yes, I've done the Lord's work. What about that child now who's sitting there and he's sick, they can't get any health care? Mother's lost her job because there's nobody watching. They're eating peanut butter. I mean, you can't just go into the church, close the door, and go, well, it's my
Exactly.
job.
Exactly. Where's the church's help for the widow or the single mother or, and we have not been doing our part. We have not the way God intended, especially the big rich churches who can afford to help. Okay, so maybe I don't get a new plane this year, but maybe I feed 5,000 mothers. Maybe I help with Pampers and this kind of thing, or maybe I help a mother find a job. A lot of things we placed on the government that really the church should be taking up the responsibility. We really should be jumping in the fight. And then if we're busy fighting one another, well, I have this doctrine, you have this doctrine, we can't talk. We should talk. I don't care if a minister is Catholic or Protestant, or we should be able to talk. Or if he's Muslim, what are you doing for your people? How can we work together to help one another? And if we're not doing that, how can we call ourselves leaders if we're not at least trying to bridge the gap or to reach out and say, what can I do to get in this fight? I mean, at my church, we're trying to become border parents, kids that are coming in unaccompanied minors. And, I'm personally signing up and going through the classes and the motion because I want to help. I mean, originally I thought to go down to the border and serve as an advocate, but then I thought, you know what, let me help some kids that are coming into this country that have been through horrific things. They're escaping things and they need some love.
Not to change the subject, I thought I'd let you guys up. I love this people. I don't want anybody in here. Well, America for Americans. That's a great idea. What Native American tribe do you belong to? Because we're all foreigners.
Exactly.
Somebody was standing there, and I saw that you're African American. Somebody drugged you off the ship. Somebody looked at my grandfather and said, "Oh God, there's another Ukrainian."
Yeah, and whatever happened to bring me you're tired, you're poor, your huddled masses yearning to be free? We're a melting pot of different places. and surely we can help our own and help others that are coming in. I mean, it's truly an example of the love of many just waxing cold. All right, we've got enough people in here, we're not helping anybody else. Or why should we help the people that are poor? Because God said so. If
And
you don't
so
have
what that
love in
really,
your heart,
not only about what you're saying, but really offends me. Like Jeff, I taught history. Pennsylvania, which was founded by Quakers to be open, free, religious colony. Unfortunately, I have to say it's become about the most bigoted one in the last 20 to 30 years. I mean, William Penn's got to be turning over in his grave. I mean, as this man. Well, I'll let you
it's
guys
true.
go. I'm going to go out and beat some sinners with my stick.
Well,
Jeez.
it's been a pleasure, sir. It's been a pleasure.
Did
Thank
you
you,
get
Dad.
$2 today in the church? No. What? Next.
Thank you,
See you,
Dad.
Jeff. See you in a couple
God
days.
bless
Yep.
you.
Thank
All
you.
righty, it's been a pleasure.
Pastor, I want to ask you a more overarching question. I think if we just step back from that a little bit, what is the condition of
Okay.
the church, in your opinion? I'm no theologian. I'm no biblical scholar. I don't play one on the radio. But again, I'm reminded of Christ's words when he sends the gospel, when he sends the disciples out 2 by 2, when he goes into the
Right.
desert and says, go preach the word, teach what I have taught you, and make children of all nations. And we then get into, well, Rabbi, what if they don't accept us? And so, turn the other cheek and move on. Um and later on in the gospels, when he turns to Peter and says, you are the rock on which I will build my church, but my church will be where you go. My church is not brick and mortar. It is not only in fact, I believe he mentions this in the temple itself, if I'm not mistaken, that the church will be, if you have accepted me, then that is where my church is. But these mega churches, these corporate mega churches that we've talked about, and these, you weren't here on Sunday, so how, what is your real commitment? Or you had mentioned earlier in the hour about, well, the offering plate was in front of you and you didn't donate to you. So how really committed are you? What is the actual state of the church? Which is a very oversimplified question, I understand, but because it really is the evangelical church, in my opinion, that has twisted the words and so on and made them political. And after the top of the hour, when we move into the second hour, I'm going to ask you about the prosperity doctrine. But where
Yes.
what is the state of the church?
We are in trouble. As a body, we are in trouble. When the leadership has lost the focus of the message, when the leadership has lost focus of what the true purpose of God's message is, we are in trouble. And he said in his word, if my people who are called by my name shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and heal their land. That's what has to be done. Until we're ready to recognize that, hey, maybe we've gotten off focus. We've allowed hate to come in, and bitterness and greed and envy. And there's just, the lusts of the eye and the pride of life. We've allowed
The
the
seven
world to
deadly
come
sins.
in. Yes. And so now that the church has been infected with this, it's almost unrecognizable. And until someone says, you know what, enough. And it just takes, it's going to take true conviction. A revival, I think, has to take place where they really realize that this is not God's way. Hey, I've got enough money. I can't spend this in 10 lifetimes. I can afford to really, really help and impact the community, because you can't take it with you. You can build treasure in earthen vessels, but guess what? When it is time, when our life is required of us, the Bible says, I believe it is in Psalms 90, where it says that we spend our years as a tale that is told. So teach us to number our days that we may apply our hearts unto wisdom. If we're spending our years as a tale that is told, what is going to be said about us? What is history going to record? What is your epitaph going to read? Because we're here for a moment and we are dust. The Bible says, for 1,000 years in thy sight are but as yesterday when it is past, as a watch in the night. So when it is time and our soul is required of us and our deeds are done, as Paul said, I fought a good fight, I've finished the course, I've kept the faith. When our work is ended, what are they going to say? That you love the poor, that you preach the gospel, that you gave, that you had a heart for him, that you loved the broken, the prodigal, that you've invited them in? Or are they going to say, I had a jet plane, I was wealthy beyond measure, I was a motivational speaker, I. Is there really an I in Christianity that way?
There are
Because the purpose of it is supposed to be about Christ.
3 people in the United States hold as much wealth as the bottom 60%, and 8 globally hold as much wealth as the bottom 3.5 billion. It would seem to me that that's about the most unchristian thing that could possibly be. Am I wrong?
Well, Jesus did say the poor we're going to have with us always. And it seems to me that that's true. The wealthy makes up a small percentage. And granted, if they decided to share their wealth with the poor or do something for the poor, it could help, but it wouldn't stop poverty. I mean, the communists had the idea of taking the wealth and distributing it evenly. Everybody was comrades and all this, and everybody was poor. So, I mean, it's nothing wrong. It's not a crime to be rich. I don't believe that. I'm not speaking against the rich, because if God blessed you with that wealth, great. But if you shared just a little bit, and showed love to underprivileged people or unwed mothers or the widow or, the broken, the prodigal, it could make a difference. It could change and affect a generation. And that's what or 2 generations. I mean, no one's asking for them to give up their wealth. I mean, Christ did to the rich man, but but if you could share a little bit of it, just a little bit could go a long way, and it could change a generation, because they need help, not just in money, but also in guidance. And if you're not allowed to, or if you're not capable of showing love, of giving, then we're losing the battle. We're losing the war, actually.
Elon Musk, a few years before spending $44 billion to buy Twitter, actually approached the United Nations. Story I've told in the program before to all of you. If you haven't heard it, here's your first. He approached the United Nations and said, how much money would it cost to eliminate global hunger? And the UN told him about $26 billion. Mr. Musk at the time was worth over $250 billion. So they told him $26 billion. So at that time, if Mr. Musk had given the United Nations, wrote them a check for $26 billion, he still would have been worth about $225 billion. Instead, about 2 to 3 years later, he spent $44 billion to buy Twitter. It is now worth less than half of what he paid for it.
Wow.
Less than half of that 44 billion would be right around the 26 billion to which he could have eliminated global poverty, or global hunger, I should say. Global hunger. Let that sit with you for a minute while I tell you thank you and welcome to the second hour of the program. This is the Kennedy Effect live with you for the 19th of November, 2023. We will not be with you next week. Let us be among the first, if we are, to wish you and your family and your friends and all that you hold dear a very happy, peaceful, fun-filled, and relaxing, and hopefully long 4-day Thanksgiving holiday weekend. We wish you nothing but the best. It's the one day a year where we encourage you to overeat. Just don't overdo it, but enjoy it. Fill up. Have a good day. And don't forget, I think maybe it was divine intervention that Pastor Clinton couldn't join us the first a date that we had been able to agree. Maybe it is a bit of divine intervention, a bit of serendipity that she is here the Sunday before Thanksgiving, so that when you sit down to that table and it is overflowing with bounty, that you will remember those who don't have it, and that maybe you can set a little bit aside for them as well. Go to your local church, go to your local food pantry. Food pantries, by the way, across the country, which have been stretched to limits that have not been seen since the Republican Great Depression of the 1930s. That extra bit of leftovers, or maybe you bought 2 packs of, I don't know, bread buns and you only end up using one. Take the other, hopefully we think about those who don't have the bounty laid out in front of them, that I hope that you will be akin to this week. I hope you will remember everyone else around you and let them help as well. That said, to all of you across Facebook, thank you for allowing us to be there. Big and small, public and private, national, global pages, groups, individuals. Thank you for allowing us to be part of your Facebook universe. Our home group Facebook page is That Other Side of Information. The group is always there, even when we're not on the air. We post a lot of news articles throughout the week, of course, about politics, but also about science and environment and religion, and certainly animal welfare, which is kind of the one that's really dear to me. A society, one of the ways a society is judged, I would suggest that it is a bit of a primary way society is judged, is how it defends those who cannot defend themselves. And of course, the animal community doesn't have the voices and the tech and all the fancy stuff that I have in this room to defend itself. So we must be their voice. So there is a lot of animal welfare on our group page as well. And I hope that you'll check it out. Anytime that we're not on the air, the page is always there. It goes 24/7. So please become a member. Come join us. That Other Side of Information. If you ever miss any of our program, the best place to catch up, youtube.com/That Other Side of Information. Yep, they're both called the same thing to try to make it easy. We are also on Instagram, TikTok, and a bunch of other my cheat sheets right behind me to look there as well. So we hope that you will follow us and be part of us and be part of our community at That Other Side of Information and the Kennedy Effect. Hot101.net, our name is our web address. If you can connect to the internet, you can listen to Hot101.net. One of the originators, founders, foundations, keystones of global internet radio. About that far after global internet radio was a thing, Hot101.net was there and helped build it. And we hope that you will check out Hot101.net 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, anywhere around the globe. If you can connect, you can listen. Apple App Store, Google Play Store, and the TuneIn Radio app. And of course, you can tell Alexa to play Hot101.net. TCP Media Group from Lancaster, PA, proud to be part of the TCP family and their tens of thousands of followers who are kept informed through their Facebook page and group, the TCP Media Group. And of course, our sponsor, www.paygive.org. My mouth is now going slower than my brain. Paygive.org. When you buy things, you have to pay for them. You might transfer money. You may send money to those in need via this fancy electronic web that we have around the globe now. PayGive is a money app. You can buy gift cards from it. You can pay for things from it. You can exchange money through it. And every time that you do anything through the PayGive app, a percentage of your transaction can be designated to be donated to a cause of your choice. It could be veterans. It could be the poor. We're talking a lot about the poor here in this program. It could be animals, could be health charities like the American Lung Association or the American Cancer Society, the Red Cross. I believe the Shriners Hospital is in there. There are children's charities. Whatever is important to you, you can donate to it through the PayGive app. The PayGive app, www.paygive.org. When you buy things, you have to pay for them. Why not give while you do it? Senior Pastor, Straight to the Heart Ministries in Philadelphia, Pastor Gia Clinton is our guest, our long-awaited guest, a 6-week wait or whatever it was that we had, but here's the important part. We were able to reschedule and she's here, and I am beyond thrilled about it. I want to ask you as we open up our second hour, and please, when you need to go, you tell me. We're not holding you here by any means. You've already donated an hour of your time already. So if you get bored or you're like, wow, I really need to get out of here and get a drink, or wow, this conversation's going south, whatever it might be, you just tell me. We'll let you get to the rest of your Sunday. I want to ask you about what I believe the evangelical movement especially has made the foundation of its ministry. And I'm kind of stretching the word ministry. And that is the prosperity doctrine. The doctrine that was actually created, the roots of it actually go back to medieval Europe. And how did we know? When the masses said, how do we know who is supposed to lead us? And what an interesting thing. It was the rich themselves that said, well, obviously God chose the rich because he blessed them with wealth. Never taking into account, of course, that some of that wealth was stolen, extracted, gained through ill-gotten methods, if you will. But this prosperity doctrine seems to have become a very, very big part of the modern evangelical movement. What say you about this prosperity doctrine?
I think that the prosperity doctrine really became popular, I would say mid to late 90s. You started hearing everybody talking about, I'm going to have this, I'm going to have wealth. Parishioners, if I give more, I'm going to have wealth. If I pay my tithes, if I do a what do they call it? The once a year offering, a huge offering once a year. They've taken all these principles, the prayer of Jabez. I'm going to do this and I'm going to be wealthy. I think that it is lost. I think that for some reason, preaching on prosperity, we've forgotten the other principles. I mean, prosperity is a season. Wealth can be a season. To everything, there's a season in the book of Ecclesiastes, and a time for every purpose under the heavens. A time to plant, a time to pluck up that which is planted, a time to sow, a time to reap. So your life cannot be just a giant harvest all the time. The Bible also talks about, and here's where prosperity doctrine is going to get interesting, perilous times are going to come. And when perilous times come, okay, let's just say, as it did in history before the stock market crashed, the dollar became worthless. There were bread lines. Rich people were jumping out of windows because they had no security for their money. Their money was worthless. If perilous times come, people are going to lose their minds, because if they don't have, or if they're not being taught relationship and fellowship with Christ, if they don't have the understanding that God is more than just a blessing, even our gospel songs of, go get your blessing, your blessing's coming. This is the blessing. This is the blessing. Not talking about necessarily, I'm struggling. How am I going to make it through? Oh my God, Lord, I'm trying to put food on the table, or my child is sick, or, my husband and I, our relationship is in peril. How do I cope with this? If they're not being taught anything but, just pray, God's going to bless you. You're going to get this blessing. You're going to have money. You're going to have wealth. They're not going to be able to deal with it. The Bible says, if it were possible, even the very elect would be deceived. There's going to come a time where, as bad as we think it is now, it's going to get so much worse. And if all you have is a prosperity doctrine, that's not really helping at the moment, because nobody's in prosperity. How are you going to be able to survive? How are you going to be able to know what to do? Dr. Charles Stanley talks a lot about, over the years, or did talk a lot about, relationship and fellowship with the Lord. And I commend him, because he wanted people to understand that there's more to God than just a blessing, how to get a hold of God, how to really have a relationship with him. Because he said, my sheep know my voice, and a stranger they won't follow. Well, if all you know is of God is that he blesses you and you get rich, or he blesses you, you can get money, this and that, that's not a relationship. If I don't talk to you, if we meet on a train, and I always give this example in church, two people meet on a train, they start talking, they hit it off, and they're like, oh, great, we're going to be friends forever. And 6 months go by, they don't talk to each other, they don't see each other, they don't fellowship. They happen to run into each other on the train again. Are they still friends? No, there's no relationship. They may not even remember each other. It's the same principle with getting to know the Lord. If you're not fellowshipping with him, if you don't know him for yourself, you can be sucked into a doctrine that says you can be rich. All you got to do is sacrifice right now, sign over your mortgage, pay tithes, double pay tithes, and give an offering, and riches are going to come. Pray over your family that they're just going to be wealthy and you're going to acquire this wealth. Where in the Bible does it say any of that? Like anywhere. I shudder when I hear people talk about this prosperity doctrine. I always ask the question, what about relationship and fellowship? Is that just come along with it, or is that automatic, or they just automatically know how to do this? Or where is God's love being taught? Where is having relationship and having an understanding that he is a healer of the sick? That people who are that need deliverance can be set free. People who are vexed in their mind can be set free. Where is all that? I mean, it's nice to have a plane and all that, but I mean, where is the real meat and potatoes of gospel being taught?
It would seem to me that one of the basic, what's a word I'm looking for? There's a reason why we look up when we need an answer, because we're asking God for it. One of the basic disqualifications of the prosperity doctrine is faith itself. Is that when these times come that you're discussing, that you're talking about, when we have lost friends, family, fortune, home, food, when everything else is stripped from us. In fact, I would hope that I'm not going so far as to say that when we stand before St. Peter in judgment, when everything else has been taken from us, it is faith that remains. It is faith that is supposed to help get us through. And
That's
that
right.
when our faith leaders are telling us from the pulpit, no, your faith is access through the gate of money, then that becomes, it becomes, they kind of cancel each other out in a way. That, so if you don't have money, your faith is meaningless somehow? Is that really what you're telling us with the prosperity doctrine? That my opinions, my faith, my beliefs, my fellowship means nothing because I'm not rich, because God's already bestowed all the blessings on the rich. So really anything that I do is kind of somewhat meaningless other than continuing to feed the rich. It would seem that they kind of cancel each other out to me. And that if you are a person of faith and you have even a cursory knowledge of the Gospels, the prosperity doctrine itself is simply null and void. Did any of that make sense?
It makes perfect sense, because if if you're rich and you have it all, and you're standing before your congregation and you're wearing red bottoms and you've got the diamonds and all this, and you're telling them, oh, if you give, you can give your way out of a problem. This is the only way God is going to, you can get his attention, is by giving. Give your way out of the problem. Give God your last. And I'm not suggesting for a second that if you gave God your last, he wouldn't bless you. But I am suggesting for a second that if you pray and ask God to help you, and give you understanding as to why this is happening. Or Lord, I find myself, as David said, I'm being pressed on all sides. And if you don't help me, Lord, help doesn't come. That this is between you and I. I mean, if David followed the prosperity doctrine, would he have been king? I don't think so. So I don't think so. You know, I'm going to
Well, following
bribe
being the
Saul.
son of a carpenter, would Christ have been the Messiah if we only saw leadership and faith leaders through the lens of money? He had nothing.
Exactly. Nothing. Born in a manger, a stable, because there was no room in a flea bag hotel for him. He was born in a manger and a barn with animals, the lowest state that a king could ever be born in. But everything about his existence was to prove a point that for all have sinned and come short to the glory of God, that there's no one righteous, no, not one, and that he was the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh unto the Father but by me. And I'm not asking you to be rich. I'm telling you, I'll take you just as you are.
No, what he was
Silver,
what he was asking of us, I am reminded of my Moravian theological classes to be a member of the church. I chose the Moravian faith, or perhaps it chose me. And I remember Reverend Nearing saying on the very first night of our adult education classes, we were at the basement of Palmer Moravian Church in Palmer Township, Pennsylvania, just outside Easton, in between Easton and Bethlehem. Palmer Moravian is a small white church on a hill. And inside it's white. It's a tenet of the Moravian faith. There's no gold, there's no big altar, it's just, it is very, well, it's Moravianism. It's not anybody else's. It's our faith, but it's Quaker-ish in that standpoint, that it's not, these big gaudy Gothic cathedrals and so on. It's a very plain white church. And we were in the basement, and Reverend had a series of books in front of him, of course, the Bible and some book of songs and and hymns, and he had some notes, and he had it all opened and spread in front of him. And he sat down and he started kind of on this kind of opening speech. And at one point he stopped and he closed all the books. He piled up all the papers and he pushed himself back from the table. He goes, "You know what? You want to know what Moravianism is?" He goes, "Go do the best you can." Because we are all sinners in God's eyes. Christ died for those sins to alleviate us to take the sins from us. And yes, it's important that we come here each Sunday in fellowship with our community. But what do you do when you're not here? If you have an elderly neighbor and it snows, do you help shovel the snow? Do you drag the garbage cans out to the curb for them? Do you help carry groceries in? A neighbor has a flat tire. Do you help them change it? A neighbor with children is sick. They can't get the kids to the bus. Do you help? This is it. And he said, this is it. That's it. These, when we boil down the teachings of Christ to the most basic, it's that you are a willing, valued member of community, of fellowship, of congregation. Did you, it isn't, did you donate $1 million to double the size of the church? Well, that's lovely. And it might be lovely. And we can welcome that many more people in, or we can add that many more cots in the basement for the unsheltered, or whatever that might be. But when you leave here, when we come together in fellowship to worship and greet each other and build this family, what do you do when you leave? And it would seem to me that what is lost in the prosperity doctrine is exactly that. The rich will lead, you will continue to donate to them, and whatever struggles you have when you leave here, Good luck with that. Your
Well, they're
thoughts?
supposed to disappear because you've donated this money,
Well,
you've
yeah,
given.
exactly. Right. You're supposed to. Right.
Never
Yes,
seems to
exactly.
happen that way, but it
No.
should. Maybe you should be giving more because your problems are not going away. It's kind of like forget your troubles, come on, get happy, or forget your troubles, come on
Right.
and just give. And I think with Christ, your point exactly is that it's about people, his people. It's about loving your neighbor as you love yourself. It's about the old lady, like you said, who's struggling with the bags, and you help her to her car without expecting anything in return. Okay, well, I helped her. Where's my blessing? Your blessing is the giving. Sometimes, okay, so when you give, the person that you gave is initially blessed, but you get blessed too. You get blessed too. And because you've been obedient to him. Mercy is like a bank account. You don't know when you're going to find yourself in need of some mercy. So you should start storing it up now. Give to those that ask, Jesus said, and do not be afraid to borrow. What did he say? Give of those that ask of you,
So then let
and
me
do
ask
not
you
be
about
afraid to lend.
so then let me ask you about yet what I find to be yet another dichotomy, another conundrum, another canceling out. I'm a Democrat. I'm a proud Democrat. I've been a Democrat since I came out of the womb. Albeit a very distant one. I'm a member of this family. I ran for my first office when I was 5 to represent my homeroom on the student council in kindergarten. And my speech was to my classmates that this is what we do. We're Kennedys. We run for office and we represent those and fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. It's what we do. I'm not better than anybody. I'm not smarter than anybody. So when our faith leaders politic us from the pulpit, especially to what I believe and history shows, and so does all the science and the data, the facts, history, they all show that when we are proselytized at from the pulpit to vote for what used to be the Republican Party, which tends to do nothing but support that rich few. And my party is not perfect, Pastor. We are not. We are not. But we're the only damn ones trying. Tell me about that dichotomy. When you see other faith leaders, when you gather as faith leaders or as church leaders together, and you know the ones that are proselytizing and saying, nope, you got to go vote Republican, kids. You all need to go vote Republican. I'm telling you, that's what God wants. The party that is taking from you, that is about as unchristian as it gets, if we're really looking at the Gospels. How do you square that when either you talk to some of these other church leaders or when you talk to, if I'm not misusing the word, the flock?
Um, I think that manipulating a congregation to support your political agenda or view is wrong. The Lord said, as far as politics go, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's. Give Caesar what is Caesar. He didn't get involved in it. Hey, I think you guys should be voting for Pontius. I mean, Herod's had his time. He didn't get into that. And so I try to stay very close to what the gospel says. Of course, being African American and growing up in a Democratic family, I am also Democrat. And I usually don't tell my political affiliation, but and yes, the party uh, has its struggles. But in a congregation, I tell people to vote their conscience, to vote what you think should be happening. I try very hard to stay away from, trying to steer people to my point of view in terms of politics. We have enough of that. Well, well, the church should be Republican. Well, who says? Who says that I'm not Republican? And I'm not saying that I don't agree with a lot of the Republican position in terms of, you know, um, certain things. But then there is also the Democratic position where I do feel that the Democrats will help the poor and they will help the needy. They will look for the person that can't help themselves. I I like the party because I think that it will help the poor guy. I think that they will try their best. I mean, they're not perfect, God knows, but I do believe that they will put programs in place to help underprivileged people who couldn't get a house, because they just couldn't afford it. I do think that they will fight for the situation with the rent. Like in Philadelphia, they have done an outstanding. I'm not just saying that because I'm from Philly. They've done an outstanding job with building housing for people who are underprivileged, trying to keep the rent hike under control. I mean, they've done their thing. They put their thing down. Are they perfect? No, but in terms of leadership and in terms of really working hard, even I live in Delaware County, and I would have to say, my rep works very, very hard to make sure that, there is a presence for the people in need. That, they're giving out turkeys, and usually I volunteer and help out, but I'm with you tonight. So, and the coat drives and things like that, because there are kids that parents just couldn't afford to buy coats. So with that regard, I see the elements of Christ in that regard, because they are helping the poor. They are welcoming everybody. They are so I have my point of view regarding that. Now, are they perfect? No. But I cringe when I feel like a church is manipulating to get votes. Maybe because, someone promised them something, and I'm going to get more if I push my congregation. You can have the vote of my congregation. Well, how do you know that? How do you know your congregation is going to vote that way? Because I'm going to tell them. I think it's abuse of authority. I do. I think people should be able to vote Republican, Democrat, Independent, whatever it is, on their own, without persuasion. I tell people to vote their conscience. I tell people to examine both parties, and I tell people to measure what's going on. Very simple. If you think everything's great and you measure it against, what you feel should be happening, and you feel like it's happening, then stay with the state, then vote your conscience. But I don't feel that I have the right to say, now people now know I'm Democrat. Oh Lord. Nobody knew. I don't feel that we as leaders have, Christian leaders have the right to manipulate. And I think there's a lot of manipulation that shouldn't be going on in the church. I think people should have the freedom to come and worship God and be who they are, just as they are. I think that people should have the freedom to choose a political party without feeling like I'm going to be kicked out of the church, or my pastor is going to be angry with me, or, I just come from a different school of thought. I come from the school of thought that Christ was liberty, and that in
And
his liberation.
then he and the disciples lived by a pretty strict definition, actually, as socialists. What one brought was shared with all. The miracle of I always get it wrong, but the two, I think it's the 2 fish and 3 loaves of bread that fed the masses. Is there
5
anything?
loaves
Is
and
there
2
anything?
fish.
Yeah, is there anything more? I always get that wrong. I always do. Is there? I told you I'm not a theologian. I'm really not. Is there anything
You're
more?
doing a great job. You are.
Is there anything more small d democratic than that? Is there anything more small d small s democratic socialist than that? Than what I have, I give to all. If one of the disciples came back with a silver piece, it went into the pot that they all used. If they came back with food, they all shared it. It seems to me they could live communally was the word I was looking for. Damn it. That was the word I was looking for.
Mhm.
They lived communally. I'm not trying to sit here and tell you that Christ was a Democrat. I'm simply saying that it would seem to me that the evangelicals who are prophetizing from the pulpit, trying to convince their congregations that if you just keep giving to the rich, if we just keep cutting taxes on the rich and big corporations, it's going to trickle down to you. And forgive my language. I always, and every time I hear the word trickle down, I'm reminded of what Tom Hartman says, my talk show, idol. I have to be honest. It is, and forgive my language. Don't piss on me and tell me that it's raining.
My grandmother used to say that.
Oh, did you? But
Don't pee on my head and tell me it's raining.
yeah, well, when your faith leader is telling you no, just keep cutting taxes on rich people. And by the way, we don't like those people of color, we don't like the immigrants, and we don't like our Jewish brothers and sisters, and we don't like our Islamic brothers and sisters, and our Hindu brothers and sisters, and I could keep going down. Or
Yeah,
not.
the list is
I
vast,
shouldn't say I
apparently.
shouldn't say down. I shouldn't say down, but I could keep going on to
Right.
the list. In fact, one of the great I hope maybe we'll get to talk about this later before you go.
Mhm.
One of the great historical endeavors, I guess you would say, in the really historical study of Christ is what did he do for those 40 days? And of course, we have the missing stories of him from when I believe he was 7 at the at temple, and
Oh,
Mary and
yeah.
Joseph can't find him, and they say, "Didn't you?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you look for me in my father's house?" And there's nothing about him then until he's an adult.
Right.
But yet there are art and stories passed down with a Christ-like figure appearing to all peoples everywhere. There are Chinese stories of Christ. There are Japanese stories of Christ. There are Australian Aboriginal stories of Christ. There are North American, Native American stories of a Christ-like figure who traveled the world and took in all religions and all faiths and all ideals. And then he appears, but that may be something we can talk about later. But my point is, I'm getting really off on a tangent here, but I'm drifting. Is that it seems to me that when faith leaders, especially again, I'm really beating on these modern evangelicals because I really do think it's a business movement, not a faith
Exactly.
movement, is telling you just keep giving to the rich. Democrats are evil. Uh, they're not your friends. They, they're the ones letting the immigrants in. They're the ones that are giving your money to the poor as if it's better somehow to give your money to the rich who don't need it and who don't share it. But I understand what you're saying about look, folks, just go vote. Study, get educated, and go vote. It's a
Right.
duty.
Right.
But we do have these faith leaders at the pulpit saying, no, vote Republican, vote against your own self-interest. You didn't have that. You couldn't spare that $5 that you put in the donation plate, which, oh, by the way, wasn't enough. Now go vote for the people who would take the $5 from you
And still ask for more.
and demand more.
Yeah.
It's about as anti-Christian as I can possibly think of.
Yeah. Unfortunately. What
If you find yourself at a lunch, let's say you have a luncheon of all the church leaders in your area, and you know some of these faith leaders who are doing exactly what I described, what are those conversations like? Do you kind of look them in the face and like, what are you up to? What are you hoping to gain? Or is it worse? I noticed the new car you drove in on.
Yeah.
Or is it
The
that?
Tesla.
What is
Sell the
that?
Tesla.
What is that? What is that discussion? I mean, it just seems, I don't know. It just seems so, I don't know. I'm at a, if I know that the paper boy threw the paper, I'm giving away my age, the paper boy, threw the newspaper that I know was meant for my neighbor's front door, but I take it. I mean, I have a conscience. I can't, that doesn't sit right with me. I'm constantly baffled, I guess, a little bit by these faith leaders who may have entered the clergy for all the right reasons. They were called. They felt a calling.
Mhm.
But somewhere along the way, somebody got to them. It started with Nixon, got very, very bad during the Reagan era, and even worse during George W. Bush. If you just tell your people to vote for us, boy, we can help you out. We can help you out. So if you should happen to see some of these other faith leaders, what are those discussions like?
Well, it's interesting that you would say that because there was a period that I was a Republican because I was a minister, and this is what ministers, notoriously they are Republican because of certain values. But when I began to examine uh, more than just those specific values, beyond that, are we feeding the poor? Are we helping the homeless and the needy? Or what about the widow, the hungry? Are we really doing all these other things? I
The
mean, those
veteran.
couple of things you can check off are great, but so much more needs to happen. And is this happening? So when I began to think for myself and not be manipulated by position, you're a pastor, you're a preacher, you need to be Republican, period. Don't look at any of the issues. Just this is the way we vote. But when I began to look at it and I realized that so many other things were not being addressed, I began to look at the other side and wait it out for myself. That's why I encourage people to always vote their conscience and to weigh it out. That is why I switch parties, because I understand that there's so many other things that I would petition for on that side that wasn't happening. And then over the years there's been a lot of hate and subversive speech that I just don't feel that in accordance to what God's word says that is appropriate. I don't think that oh, we just shouldn't love Jews, or we those Muslims, or he's all about the love, all of it, all about the love, period. What did Paul says? If I have not love, I'm but as a sounding brass and a tinkering cymbal. Though I speak with prophecies and understand all mysteries, though I speak with tongues of men and of angels, if I have not love, he basically says I am nothing. So the gifts that we share, the guidance that God has endowed us with, or gifted us with, we're supposed to spread his message of love. Oh, well, you mean to tell me you'd go and speak, you'd go and listen to a Muslim? Yes, I went when I was in California. I went to hear Louis Farrakhan. I met a couple of friends that were Muslim, and I said, I tell you what, you come to church with me, I'll go to church with you. Why not? What is it gonna is it contagious? I mean, what in the world? Of course, I had a wonderful time, and they had a wonderful time at my church. So I don't think that if we're closed to people and that door is closed and you don't look like me, so you can't come in. It's ridiculous. Christ was totally against that. He was all about loving your neighbor, loving those that even loving those that hurt you. Pray for those that despitefully use you. And that's very hard to do. If love was easy, everybody would do it. Apparently, it's not. But if we could take the time to listen to his message, if we could take the time to embrace his principles, we would see that that guy that cuts you off in traffic, you don't have to tailgate him. Let him go. Show some mercy. You don't know when you're going to need it, or you're going to pull up behind him and cuss him out. And,
I'm reminded.
it's like hate.
I'm reminded. I might be drilling down a little bit too far, but I'm reminded that Christ was a pro-education Christ. I'm
Yes.
reminded of the scene in Jesus in Nazareth when Christ is unveiled to us as an adult. Robert Powell, who played Christ in that who looks so creepily much like him, or at least the Western version of him, I should say, walks into the local synagogue in Nazareth and has come of age and can read from the scriptures, and tells the congregation, and he reads, I believe it's from Ezekiel, about the prophecy of the Messiah. And reads, finish, if I'm remembering the scene correctly. The reason why I love Jesus of Nazareth so much is I feel like I'm watching history. I feel like I'm watching, the words of look, it's a Hollywood, it's a dramatic thing. I get it, but
Do you watch The Chosen? They kind of make it a little more when they tell the story of Christ, they tell it in a way that it's amazing. Most people that I talk to, even Muslims, Buddhists, when they watch it, you can't watch it without crying. I bawled like a baby. And
no, but I will
we're
find it
waiting for.
now. Now that you said
You
it,
have to
I will try
see
to
it.
find it.
One of the things that I thought was so interesting was Matthew the tax collector was not a nice guy. And one of the things you see that he has a form of autism. I think it's like Asperger's or something like that. I mean, none of them were perfect in any way, the disciples, but and you see why they disliked each other, why people, but then you see Christ come in and you see them change. And he calls them just the way they are. And he just loves them. And it is emotionally moving, and they've been talking about it on different forums. Rabbis and priests and pastors and even imams have gotten together and just talked about it universally. It preaches his message of love, and they're all crying and they're like, "Oh my God, I just can't." And I didn't believe it was true until I saw it. But it is an amazing thing.
Right.
I think the gentleman's name that is the sponsor is Josh Dallas. His father wrote Left Behind, I believe. But
Okay.
he is amazing. When you watch
Ooh.
discussion.
Well, I was thinking about that in that scene. Or no, is it when it might be when he's in the temple. He's confronted by the Pharisees. And he says that these books are alive. They are not simply the domain of you in your fancy robes. They are the people's books. That there are stories of not just him telling stories to children, but reading to them. That our faith leaders have. There's an educational component to what you do.
Yes. Yes.
You are an educator. You're an educator
Yes.
of Christ. You're an educator of faith. And you're a leader. And again, I'm here I go. I don't think the modern evangelical movement does that. I think they take that back and we're telling you, you do what we say. Christ engaged in conversation. He did not rule. He engaged in conversation. Are we losing? Has the evangelical movement lost? Have they removed conversation from the equation? It would seem to me that they have. That
Yeah.
doesn't mean you have to agree with me. I'm just saying. It
No, it
seems
is
to
true.
me
It's
that they
more do
have.
as I say. Do as I say.
And
Only
sometimes
listen
do
to
as I
what I
say, not
say.
as I do.
Exactly.
When I get caught with,
Exactly.
this, that, or the other,
Yeah.
we'll leave that blank for now. But I mean, or when I get caught with sacks full of cash, or when I get caught on the internet trolling for XYZ, we'll leave that little blank for now.
Exactly.
But do as I say,
It-
not as I do.
it's become it's become unrecognizable, and at some point people are going to get tired when the pressure, when the heat turns up, and things get a lot worse before they get better, so to speak, or things get, I mean, the Bible talks about perilous times coming. The book of Isaiah brought about the foretelling of Christ. They foretold and prophesied his birth. And I remember when I was reading about that, I remember thinking, all these thousands of years they foretold Christ, his birth, and now he's come, and we've had the birth, death, resurrection, and then in the book of Daniel, it talked more about what was to come after all this. The when time starts winding down, and we know that the end is coming, or Christ is soon to come back, or those of us that do believe in the rapture, which I do. We start to see Bible prophecy line up from the book of Revelation, veil of the temple, and Israel being united, and it talks about war. It really breaks down very many things. And it's interesting that in all of that, it talks about the coming of famine and all this. If you've got a prosperity doctrine, it also talks about a great falling away. And it could be because of the prosperity doctrine, people are going to really be going through some real hard times. And if the church is only offering this as a remedy, they're like, what good is this? This isn't helping me. I got some real problems here. I have nothing to give you. You have nothing to put in church. So I tend to follow the example of Charles Stanley in that I teach relationship and fellowship. If you don't know him for yourself, if you don't have an understanding and a relationship with him and fellowship with him, you can be deceived. You can be sucked into something that you can buy into the Kool-Aid. I mean, we all know about the Jim Jones thing. And, I always bring that up every now and then about how people were manipulated and deceived by this man's propaganda, his own doctrine or his own interpretation of things. And it was cultish. And people died because of that. They drank the Kool-Aid or was forced to drink the Kool-Aid at gunpoint, some accounts say. I don't think that what's happening now is godly. I don't think that the church, what it's turning into, is in keeping with the principles of Christ. And this is as a whole, speaking about the evangelicals. I hear a lot of hate. I hear a lot of, just mostly hate. If the other side is talking, they're bad, they're this, they're that. Where's Christ in any of this? Why? And first of all, why are you so in tuned into politics that this is all we're talking about? I mean, why are we not telling people how to get a hold of him, how to serve him, how to live, according to what he says, according to his standards, not ours. The Bible says it is he that has made us and not we ourselves. We are his people and the sheep of his pasture. So if we're his people, shouldn't we be spreading his message and not our own? Subversive speech and hate speech is not a part of his message.
National polls globally show that the United States, one of the very few things that we actually lead in, is the percentage of our population that identify as people of faith and of deep faith and of regular church goers. I believe the U.S. percentage is in the 42% range. Generally across Europe, it's in the 26% range. Some nations, it's even lower. But in the United States, though the youngest generations are identifying as people of faith at historic low percentages, where has the church missed its connection with younger folks, and how does it fix it?
I would say that we missed it because they've seen so much hypocrisy. They've seen so many questions unanswered, too many. They've seen it doesn't help that Hollywood makes fun of churches. I mean, and their pseudo righteousness. And children have seen this and they don't want any parts of the church. I've talked to young people and Pastor, I don't want to go to church. I don't want to be in that. I don't want to be a part of that. They're just so hateful. And what can you say? But, yeah, it does seem to be that way. Not all churches are that way. Not everybody follows that evangelical banter. Not everybody talks about these people and that people, and this is separated, and we're not doing this, and don't give to that person. It's totally opposite of what Christ asked us to do in many ways. Now, are all evangelicals bad, horrible people? Absolutely not. They're not. I don't think they're horrible people at all. I think they're just misguided and misled in many ways. And I think there are some that feel the way that I do, that says, hey, this is going a little far. We should be loving everybody. We should be giving to the poor. We should be encouraging Christ's love. We should be telling everybody to come just as they are and hear the word of God and develop a relationship with Christ for ourselves. Everybody is not buying the Kool-Aid, but for those that are, it's impacted our society in a way that young people don't want any parts of Christ anymore. They don't want any parts of or should I say the church anymore, the organized church. They feel that it's just they're hypocrites and pastors are this and that. And what about this? I mean, kids, they're paying attention. They're listening. They're hearing the talks at the dinner table. They're hearing about the gossip and they're hearing about, oh yeah, did you hear about that? And oh, this pastor was caught with this. If you're a kid and you're hearing all this, do you really want to go to church after all that? Is Christ really just allowing all this? Is he really about that? And so young people now have questions that we are not answering. Oh, just pray and just give your tithes and God will do the rest. No, you're going to have a relationship and fellowship with him. If I have a young people and they say, oh, Pastor, I just would rather watch TV. I'd watch church on TV. I don't want to get involved in that. Well, the word of God says we shouldn't forsake ourselves the assembly of the saints, which is true. But you got to start somewhere. Well, you know what? If you're watching it on TV, great. But I encourage you to have a relationship with him. Are you praying? Are you reading your word? Are you talking to God about how you're feeling? Are you listening for his answers? We've got to start encouraging them to get to know him for themselves so that when they see wrong, their antennas are going up and they're saying, hey, this isn't the kind of church I want to be a part of. But there are other good churches around here. Let me find one that lines up with what I believe in and what that I'm hearing God's message of love. And I think that's where they are. They're confused, they're upset, and they're not alone. Many adults are feeling the same way. I don't want to go to church because all my pastor does is talk about politics and I just want to hear the word and go home. Or, I don't have a whole lot of money and I try to tithe and, it's not enough. We're taxing the people with things that God is not intending us to tax them with. And judgment, when it comes, is going to be swift. And he's going to start from the top. For the time has come for judgment to begin at the house of God. And if it begin, let it begin with us. Let us answer for what we're doing. Let it start with us. It's the only way that things are going to change. The head must be right.
You mentioned a term that I really should have been using throughout this program, and that is the organized church. Does the organized church have, that's not the right way to ask it, not a duty, but does the organized church have to leave the four walls to go reach folks? Like
Yes.
you mentioned watching
Absolutely.
on TV. Like I've always kind of felt that's somewhat lazy too, and it's not that I am not one who should be making such a judgment. I'm not. And yet I do find myself kind of thinking, well, that's just pick yourself up and get to church just once a week. That's set. And I've been exceptionally guilty in past years of walking away from the church too. When my nephew was killed when he was 22, I didn't want anything to do with the church at all because they owed me an explanation and I never got it. And I still haven't got it. And certainly I have not been the same person since my father passed. When he was older, he was ill. He would probably have said he had a good life. But I do know at the end, he was strong. He was, he was a lot of things I'm not, unfortunately. But
and it was your past
but I know at the end,
responsibility to do that.
but I know at the end he was scared. And I didn't and still don't understand why he would have been allowed to have been so scared. Faith should tell us that we'll be okay, that we'll be accepted into the bosom of Christ. And I know that the church was never terribly important to him, but I know he had a relationship. It was quiet and it was private, but I know he had a relationship with God. I know he did. But we talked earlier in the program that the church, that Christ said the church will be where, when you carry my word, that is my church. You carry the church with you. The church is wherever you go. Does the church, as a whole, I'm going to stop punching this one these days, that the church has to go out and connect, maybe reconnect
Well, for instance, our job is I sat by many people who were dying. The one that hurt me the most was my uncle had passed away and he was dying. And my aunt called me. I was up in Harrisburg at the time, and it was the hardest thing to do to minister to a family, my family, you know, my aunt, my cousins, and they were all fighting. And you know how it is. They get upset and they're angry and they're upset. And my uncle, who was, also my godfather, my Uncle Donnie, and I watched him take his last breath. He was in hospice, and I sat by his bedside and I read him scriptures and I talked to him about being with Christ. And it's okay to let go because of what you've given in this life. And if this is your time, then we shouldn't be selfish. We should be willing to let you go so that you can rest and be in his arms. And I talked about, so ministering to him, and I remember kissing him and tears coming down his face because they give them medicine to ease the pain, but they still hear us. But I wanted him to carry that into eternity, that God loves him and that he would be waiting on the other side for him, and that although we're going to miss him, we will see you again. The Bible says to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord, to be in his presence. And I assisted with his funeral, and I, talked to my family members individually because that's my job. Before I can grieve, before I can do anything, I'm called to be what God called me to be first, and that's a pastor. So my first responsibility is to minister to his wife and to him and to the family to make sure they're okay, to all the way to the end and commit his body to the ground. That's the soldier that God has called us to be as pastors. We are supposed to comfort those that need comforting. And I dare say that if your father had had a minister by his side talking to him and, in his last days or his last hours, and to the family, comforting them, being there, that's what we're called to do. One of my close friends' mother had passed away, and before she was she was a cancer survivor, and it came back, and she didn't win that fight. And she said to me, "I want you to do my funeral. I want you to help my children get through this." And I promised her I would. And from beginning to end, I was there. And I'm not going to tell you, I did her eulogy. I'm not going to tell you it was the hardest thing. But God gives us the strength to do those things because we must do them. We must be there. We're called to a higher standard, and it stands to reason that if we're called to a higher standard, then we must live as examples of him. And that is the way that I try to minister, and that is the way that I try to explain to even the congregation, this is how we're supposed to be. We're supposed to give. We're supposed to love. We're supposed to serve because God did it. Christ did it.
Is that the message that needs to be carried to younger folks as well?
Yes. 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 And if they see the change in us as leaders, then they're going to want that. They're going to want to be a part of that. They're going to want something that is real.
We have reached the final hour of the program. I am blessed, and I don't use that word lightly, and I don't use it as a pun. I'm blessed that Pastor Clinton is still here with us. I will try to rush through a bunch of other topics in our final time with her so I can let her get back to her life. She's given quite enough time to us already tonight. It is 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's right, we changed. Eastern Standard Time. We will not be with you next week. Enjoy your long Thanksgiving holiday. I hope it is filled with joy and peace and relaxation and good times with family, friends, clergy, donating your time, volunteering, whatever it is that is important to you over the Thanksgiving Day holiday. I hope you enjoy it. I hope it brings you everything that you wish that it will bring you. We wish from all of us at hot101.net, at TCP, at the Pay Give app, and at the Kennedy Effect, we wish you, let us be among the first, if you would allow us to wish you the very best of Thanksgiving holidays this coming up this week. We will not be with you next week. Celebrate. You're probably going to have to talk enough politics with crazy Uncle Larry at Thanksgiving. You don't need me on top of it. So enjoy and do that. Wherever you are on Facebook, that other side of information is our home group Facebook page. The show is currently live on my own page, Jeff Kennedy, as well. Hot101.net, Apple App Store, Google Play Store, and the TuneIn Radio app. If you can connect to the internet, you can listen to Hot101.net everywhere around and above the globe. Tell Alexa to play hot101.net, TCP Media Group in Lancaster, and of course our sponsors, the PayGive app, www.paygive.org. When you buy things, you have to pay for them. Why not give while you do it? Let me rush through a couple of other topics. You did not tell me when you have to go yet. I'm going to assume that it's soon. So let me try to somewhat rush through a couple of topics that I really wanted to get with you.
And
You are in the Philadelphia area. Philadelphia has a historic new mayor, a woman of color, first one in their history. Sherelle Parker was elected mayor, not this past Tuesday, but the Tuesday before, at the end of the election cycle, November 7th. Working in politics, we don't call it election day anymore. It's the end of the cycle because of mail-in voting and all these other things. What are your hopes, expectations for the new mayor?
my hope is that the city really embraces her and that she is given the liberty and the freedom to do all the things that she has platformed to do and to bring change. Philadelphia historically was known as the city of brotherly love. It would be nice to see us get back to that. And I know she's got a lot of things to tackle with the gun violence and the rise of it, and she's got her plate full. But my hope is that God grants her the grace and the support that she needs to get the job done.
You mentioned gun violence. It was something that I wanted to talk to you about as being in the Philadelphia area. I believe Philadelphia is a target. It is a scapegoat. It is a buzzword. You know, in politics, we use that phrase a lot. It's a buzzword. It's a word to make you think certain things, even if subconsciously. The ex-president used to target Philadelphia a lot. They're moving out from Philadelphia. They're coming to your they're coming to your neighborhoods. With Philadelphia being one of the only majority Black cities left in the North, they're of course scattered all throughout the South, but Philadelphia and Detroit, I believe, being the only two northern cities remaining that are majority Black. Gun violence has been a scourge on Philadelphia.
It has. That's correct.
When you are at the pulpit or when you're on the streets, walking from shop to shop, or maybe going to visit a parishioner who might not be well, what do you talk to your church family about gun violence?
Well, in the city of Philadelphia, they had the moratorium where anyone could just bring a gun to a location and just drop it off. We were trying to do that, but then they just go bring in more guns. So a lot of the gun violence is because of fear. It is. People are afraid. You see somebody approaching you, you shoot first, ask questions later. A lot of the gun violence has risen within the community and our younger children, carrying guns, shooting, robbing places. It is a real thing because I live here. And then police officers getting shot. I mean, it doesn't happen often, but in a lot of ways, many officers, I have a lot of friends that are police officers, feel that their hands have been tied. Stop and frisk was a real thing back in the day, but then they thought it was more racial profiling. So now I've heard Black officers as well as white say, hey, we might need to go back to that for a little while and start disarming some of these young ones that have these guns. And that's a tightrope. It is some issues that we are dealing with regard to maintaining the balance of honoring people's rights versus the rights of everyone, and that's to be safe. So what I tell them, churches have gotten robbed, unfortunately, at gunpoint. It doesn't happen very often. It's only happened a couple of times, but it has happened. And not just in Philadelphia, but other places. Where are we now with the police department starting to arm them a little bit better? Everything is not, we understand everything is not racial profiling. Sometimes it is necessary to stop and for, hey, listen, especially if you suspect someone has a gun. Kids are getting shot, kids are getting hurt, people are afraid to come outside. The gun violence and the shootings are happening. It is real. Just the other night, unfortunately, even in Upper Darby, it was about 2 o'clock in the morning. I heard gunshots in the back where I live, and honestly, in my neighborhood, it has changed and people are trying to get out. They don't listen. I don't want to live here anymore. Really good people, teachers, and, because it's not, no one wants to live with that kind of fear, nor should they. And it is something that we're going to have to tackle, and we can't tackle it with oven mitts. We're going to have to put some boxing gloves on and really handle this situation, or it's going to get beyond. We don't have enough police, first off, to handle the situations that are arising. We do need to, and they're in a process of hiring more officers, so it is a real thing in our city. And I do think that this new leadership is up for the task and will rise to the occasion and kind of meet it head on, because it's the only way we can do it. I don't know why our city was targeted. I don't know why he hated Philadelphia so much, but
Because it's a majority Black city, let's say it.
oh
And
yeah,
if
well
you
that's
don't want
true.
to, I mean, if you don't want to, I can't force you to say something that you might not agree with, but it was targeted because it was a majority Black city. Period.
But yeah, well
I
it
don't
was
think
a
it's any more
majority.
complicated than that.
It was a majority Black city, but there was the gun violence. I mean, he wasn't. I think he was over exaggerating, of course. I mean, it wasn't as bad as he was making it out, but we do have an issue that we should address,
Are,
that we are trying to address.
are we missing as a society, as a faith community, that so much of crime, certainly not all crimes, but a good portion of crime are crimes of desperation? A person
It's true.
robs a grocery store for money or food because they're starving or broke.
It's true.
I can't say murders are crimes of desperation. Unless the woman who may murder the abusive partner, or vice versa, or in any relationship, really, in whatever form that might be, the abusive partner, the abusive relationship, or the child that will, take revenge on the abusive elder. But I'm getting a little too specific, I think. But crime, so many crimes are crimes of desperation. Has society and has the faith community perhaps forgotten that? And that
I think
really it is a Christian a message that can, when economic times are good and wealth is spread, this country had historically low rates of all types of crimes, from the smallest
true.
to the worst, following the Republican Great Depression. When
It's
the
true.
New Deal was fully in effect, the middle class was expanding at record pace. It was a majority of the population of the country. We just missed getting to 60% of the country was middle class. Now it is less than 50.
Wow.
We have stripped the middle class. We have stripped the 99% and empowered the 0.01%. Again, as I mentioned earlier on the program, three people in this country have as much wealth as the bottom 60%. These are crimes of desperation, aren't they?
They are. They are crimes of desperation. And Philadelphia has been trying to address the poverty issue. And it's a big issue because there are many elements that go into this. And they're trying to implement programs to help the poor. But when people don't have food and they can't find a job, they'll sell drugs or they'll rob people, or kids are just angry in general. And they just, I mean, some of it is that the children are, the young ones are angry um, because of their home life. If there's no governing at home, you know, We as a society have to take responsibility for what goes in our house. I mean, if you're a mom and you're not home and your kids are running amok, that's not the government's fault, it's our fault. Now if she has to work, that's a different thing. But if you're out shaking it up at the club and you're not home with your children or feeding them, that's her problem. That's something that she neglected. And now it becomes society's problem because these children have no guidance. So on one hand, the government can only do but so much. But on the other hand, we as citizens need to take responsibility for our families. Now, if you're struggling, yes, programs can help, but I mean, if you're just, I don't want to be a mom or I don't want to be a dad or just, I'm so sick of these kids, I can't do anything with them kind of thing. And they're growing up alone, or like Lord of the Flies, they're pretty much raising themselves, then you're going to have these issues because there's no guiding voice that says, hey, this is wrong. I don't want you to do this. Hey, there's another way and you don't have to live this way. This is not how you're being raised to live. So at some point, I do think that we have a responsibility as citizens also to where it's not all about, desperation and poverty so much as we find ourselves in situations because there's no guidance. There has to be guidance. There has to be a check and balance, even at home. I taught in a Chester Community Charter School. I was doing a program called Harambe Maya, and we dealt with anger management. And many of those children, if you talk to them, they'll say, my mom's not home, or she moved another boyfriend in, or, there were some that had mom and dad at home, and some just had mom and she worked and the grandmom was involved. When there's an involvement, there's community involvement. I do believe it does take a village. When there's no village and there's no consequence, people are going to do what they think is good and right in their own eyes, even if it means robbing people or hurting people, because there's no consequence.
I don't believe that the faith community has any extra responsibility more than the rest of the society. But where does the faith community have to step in to help with the gun violence? Christ's message is a message of peace.
Right.
Where does the faith community have to come in to help this along, to help with these crimes of desperation and with the gun violence program? And again, I don't think the faith community has any more responsibility than any other section of society, but where's the faith community's role in this? Or what do you believe is the faith community's role in this?
I believe that we do have a greater responsibility than other sections of society, because if you have a congregation and you're within that congregation, you're talking to them, there also has to be outreach. Outreach has to go into the communities and say, hey, I'm giving away socks and water and shirts and a message of hope, and let's talk. Let's get involved. Let's talk about what's going on in your community. Let's have town meetings. Let's talk about what's happening. Let's knock on some doors and say, hey, how's the food situation? If we're not doing our part, then we can report to our leaders. We can say, hey, I've gone into XYZ community and zip code 19131, and there's families that are hungry in this community. What can we do? How can we help these people? How can we get some help here? When they see that their church, years ago, I remember Dr. King talked about the responsibility of the church. They would help one another. The church had so much power that if Dr. King says we're calling a boycott, guess what? Nobody rode the bus. If we have the attention of our people and they can trust us and they know that we can help get things done, then they have hope. Then they're coming to church. You have a method for my family to eat, or you have a method for my son to get a job, or this, or you know what we can do to help. If we had that kind of voice and that kind of presence in the community, I think we could turn the community around. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to happen instantly, but it will happen. Change will come. But it's going to take all of us, not just, okay, well, we're looking at the government and they're not getting any programs and we're just not going to get involved. If we come outside of those four walls and we band together and we're not fighting each other. New Hope has 1,000 members. Bright Hope has 400 members. I don't want to deal with this pastor because I don't want him taking my members, or I don't want that. None of that should even come into question. These are not our people. These are God's people. They're his people and the sheep of his pasture. Shepherds only guard the sheep. They don't, we're not owners of the sheep. So I think that if we came together and really started working outreach and really started finding out what's going on in the communities, and that's just not limited to the Protestants or the Christian church, but the Catholics as well, and even people of Muslim faith. If they're getting out into the community and working together, we can change a generation. We can make a difference. Because then we can talk to the leaders and we can say, hey, or our politicians, we need this in our community. This is what's going on. Now, they have ward leaders and things like that, but the church also has to get involved. We've got to jump in the fight, because many churches don't really know what's going on outside of their four walls because they don't go outside of the walls. They don't know. They're not talking to the people. They're not going into communities, not the way they should.
Another place that I think communities of faith have a responsibility, and it would seem to me that it is a natural one, a very natural one. Scripture's natural. God made us stewards of this planet.
That's right.
He did not give us license to destroy it. Does your church have an environmental message? Do you find an environmental message a natural part of your message?
When we talk in terms of the environment, you're talking about, I mean, I had people talk to me about, I don't want to take the shot. I think it's the mark of the beast, or I don't, during the pandemic, or you have a responsibility to do this because we're trying to keep the community safe. And if you catch COVID and you spread it to somebody and somebody dies, then isn't that blood required to you because you felt like you didn't, it's not my responsibility to help my brother. It is. Nobody wants to get a COVID shot, but you need to go get one. That's part of keeping our environment and our community safe, cleaning up. Years ago, my dad and the neighbors, they would get together and they'd sweep our blocks. They would all get together Saturday morning early. They're washing the streets. They're sweeping the blocks. They're picking up trash. Their neighbors' trash, but they did it because we're a community and we're responsible. We are our brother's keeper. We are. If you live next door to someone and you know that they're hungry and you've got something extra, knock on the door and say, hey, I don't know if you can use this. If you can't, great. Maybe you can give it to someone who doesn't. But I thought maybe, I'd like to give you this for your family. I had a little extra. I grabbed something extra at the grocery store. Communities talk to each other. Neighbors knew one another. It is not unheard of to live into a community where neighbors don't even know each other, where they're throwing trash and they're doing this and they're doing that because they don't have a community responsibility to one another. So I think that the church can stimulate that. I always ask people, do you know your neighbors next door? How about the neighbor down the street? Do you talk to one another? Would a child know where to go if they were locked out of the house? Is there a neighbor that they could go to? Years ago, you could go to a neighbor. You could, you know what I mean? And so because the communities have changed, people literally don't know their neighbors anymore. And people don't feel a responsibility, a communal responsibility to help one another. And they should. And I think it is the church's responsibility to kind of generate that, hey, even if you have a neighbor you don't know, or if you got a little extra, it's okay to offer. You see your neighbor needs a jump. My grandmother always tells a story. She was running late for work and she saw a neighbor who was on his way to work and he needed a jump. Now, the dilemma is, do I stop and am I late for work or do I help my neighbor? She said, well, I called my job. I said, listen, I've got a little emergency. I'm going to be a little late. She said, I went out and I helped my neighbor jump his car. It is our responsibility to help one another. And she said, when she got to work, she thought she was going to be in trouble. Oh, no, it was fine. She said, and I think it was God's mercy because I showed mercy to someone else. Mercy's contagious. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. That's what the Word of God teaches us.
Churches have been catalysts of societal change. The civil rights movement of the post-war era into the 60s. Dr. King, Randall mentions in the chat that Dr. King graduated from the former Crozier Theological Seminary in Chester. Is it time for the churches to be that again?
Yes. The truth of the matter is it should never have stopped. But for whatever reasons it strayed from the path, it needs to get back in line. Because society depends on the kind of message that we deliver as a whole, as a religious group, period. And it's not just Christianity. All of the leaders need to be helping one another. We are our brother's keeper. We should be getting involved. We should know what's going on in the community. We should know.
It would seem
I'm only responsible for my four walls. I've heard pastors say that. But beyond those four walls, your congregation, when they leave you, they go out and they live beyond those four walls. So it does stand to reason that we are responsible for what happens next.
Because it would seem to me that faith messages, going backward, messages of environmental preservation, of greening the economy, if you will, of economic justice, of social justice, of that if you did commit a crime and you pay your debt to society and you're released, that you should be able to resume your life and not forever be punished even when you're out. And that, just because possibly that all you see are nails, the answer to every question is not always a hammer. And that, and that maybe we need to help you not see everything as nails so that you don't always use your hammer. These are faith-based issues. Economic justice is a faith-based issue. I know that there's a separation of church and state, and I happen to believe in it very deeply. One of the I've told this story on the program 1,000 times too. One of the deepest debates at the Continental Congress, the Constitutional Congress, was between two words: of and from. Jefferson and Madison wanted to enshrine in the Constitution a freedom from religion. And it was largely the Southern colonies that demanded nothing further than a freedom of
religion.
But it does seem to me that messages of environmental justice, economic justice, they are faith-based. They are the message of God and of Christ. And in other faiths, the message of the prophets, of the important prophets of those faiths, that these justice arguments are faith-based arguments.
I think faith to some degree has a responsibility in terms of environmental. I think that we should be telling people not just to love our neighbors, but also to love our environment, to love our community. I agree. However, when you say separation of church and state, there's only so much we can do in terms of as clergy. And I was never a proponent of clergy getting involved in politics in that way. I feel that we should have a voice in that we say, vote your conscience, pay attention to the issues. But when it's a tightrope, it's a thin line, because you don't want clergy to influence elections. But at the same time, you want clergy to get involved in issues, political issues. I think in terms of environmental, you have people who feel that certain pesticides, for instance, in Philadelphia, the bed bug situation. Well, DDT was a drug that a pesticide that we used, I think, in the 60s. And I think some birds were affected by it, or some insects. I'm not sure which which part of the environment that somebody felt was a problem. But now we're overrun with bed bugs and you know, in the city, and DDT was outlawed, but yet they use it everywhere else, you know, and we still manufacture it and send it overseas. So it's kind of a, you know, I mean, if you're asking the church to get involved in those kind of discussions, I think that we we really should, if we want a clean environment and it's not harmful to humans, and they're saying, oh, it's a species of bird that has an allergy to it or whatever. I think that our first responsibility is to our community, to us as humans. So our people now are supposed to be plagued with bed bugs because some bird had a problem. I mean, some things are ridiculous. I mean, I'm not saying that, and you know, the species of bird didn't have a right to live, or shouldn't have been allergic or whatever. I do feel that our human environment, our focus should have been on us. You know, because in Europe, they don't even want us in certain places because, well, they may have bed bugs. We don't want that in here. They've got a problem. You know, our country now has, as it, after all these decades, now we are dealing with this. So when you take away certain things, well, what about the ecosystem and this and that? Yes, the ecosystem serves us, you know, and so I think that some things we do have to kind of take responsibility for. You know, if DDT was so bad, then why are we sending it overseas? Why is everyone else still using it? I just think that I just think that we go too far on some issues and not far enough on others.
Well, I would make the allegory to animal welfare. I have no position, or I have no right whatsoever to sit on this program and, again, pardon the pun, proselytize to folks about how they should all be vegans.
Right.
But I do think we can, as a human species, treat the animals that we might raise for food a hell of a lot better than we do.
Agreed.
So there, it would seem to me that, and I think that part of that treatment, or that ethical improvement in treatment, is somewhat faith-based. Do unto others, voice of the voiceless, protect those, you know, stand for those who can't stand for themselves. These are somewhat well, in my view, these are faith-based arguments to me. I have no right in the world to tell somebody you can't eat pork or beef or whatever. I have friends that are vegan. They've made that choice for themselves. That's freedom. I can't tell. I don't have a right to demand that people stop eating meat, but I do think that we can be better people by treating these animals better. We have Kristen and I have a dog and a cat. I see horrific stories of animal abuse and cat hoarding situations and such things. I do not believe my dog is a human being. I might talk to her like she is, but I don't believe that she is. But I also don't think she's exactly property either, tantamount to a vase or a refrigerator or my car. She's sentient. She feels pain. She's happy. She's sad. She's bored. She's tired. She's happy. She's hungry. She's not hungry. She's a sentient, self-aware being. I happen to believe that domesticated animals can be treated. I don't know that they can be given full human rights, but they certainly are better than property, something tantamount more to the way we protect children. And it would seem to me that that is a bit of a faith-based argument, that this is a life in front of me that's on my lap, curled up on my lap, purring, or, you know, that's chomping away on her food at night when I'm trying to take a nap, or something like, or barking at something when I'm trying to take a nap, or something like that. But it would seem to me that that is somewhat of a faith-based argument. Am I just way off, or is that part of the way that faith can inform us as a society and as people.
I think that is, I think that you're absolutely right, because I can remember talking to the children
And Randall, I
about,
know that you called. I know you're there. We'll get to, just hang in there, son.
yep, 1 second, Randall, we're almost there. I'd love to hear your question. I can remember talking to the children and asking them, because we were dealing with anger management, how many of them have ever hurt their animal. And it was, to me, it was heartbreaking to hear a child say that they kicked their dog, or they've hurt their animal, or they were angry and they struck him, or, yeah, I mean, I have a cat, so and she's very temperamental, but I can't imagine not. I mean, it was just gut wrenching. I said to the children, if you could kill an animal, you could hurt a human. You could kill a human. That's how dangerous anger is. If you can kill something so defenseless, who does nothing but love you, or, will let you kick them because they just love you and they don't want to hurt you back, you're capable of killing a human. And you would be surprised how many children raised their hands and said, I think that's true. What do I do with this anger? How do I control it? So when we talk about society, they had, a few years back, they had a drive going on at a church about adopt a pet. The pets that were at the SPCA, and you just go and adopt them. We did it. That's how we got Starburst. And she was a cat. Her mom was in an abandoned building. They found her, and she gave birth to Twix, Twizzler, Almond Joy, Starburst, and Mounds. So we picked Starburst was the only girl. And she, it's so funny because whatever fear the mother had, she would hide. She hides all the time. We've had her 8 years and she still hides. My dad for like 3 years didn't believe I even had a cat. It's like, I've never seen your cat. And I was like, Dad, she hides. She's afraid of people. She only comes out. He thought I was losing it. I've never seen this cat. I'm like, Dad, she does exist. I promise you. Then one holiday, she just finally came out because she was so used to feeling the presence of the family. She rubbed against my dad's leg. He was like, you really have a cat. So they feel pain and they feel torture, and they feel, even like you said, the way we, the cattle, allow cattle to graze. If you respect human life and you respect animal life, the harvest that you receive back is unmeasurable, because just by the treating the animals properly and giving them proper antibiotics and making sure they're not sick and making sure that they are well kept and well fed, even if you do believe that you want a hamburger and you're going to slaughter this cow or whatever, at least treating it with respect, and maybe not overtaxing the sea, and allowing it, because there was cycles where people could fish, and then there was cycles where the sea was allowed to replenish. I don't think we are allowing for things to replenish the way we should. And that's where famine comes in. It comes in from the lack of respect for sentient life.
Right. We
And
have
I
the Dust
think
Bowl in the United States. We had the Dust Bowl during the Great Depression, the Republican
that's
Great
right.
Depression era, because we over farmed the land, and we
That's
farmed the
right.
same crop over and over and over again until we stripped the soil of its worth, nutrition, whatever, insert proper term. I'm not a farmer. But and we created the Dust Bowl, and the only way we got ourselves out of it, really the first, well, probably the second really environmental president, Teddy Roosevelt was the first, is we paid farmers to not farm and let the land heal itself. And so we can do that. But anyway, our second caller of the night, and a weekly caller, the most loyal of listeners, and I'm fortunate enough to say we've become friends. Randall, we got not a lot of time left, so jump straight into it. Thanks for being patient.
Fine. Jeff, you've seen all my comments tonight, right?
I have, sir. Yes.
Okay. No problem. Just Pastor Clinton, have you seen all my comments tonight?
I have not seen them.
Okay. All right. I'm going to jump in. For once, Jeff, I'm going to try and be quick. First, Jeff,
I just
You've
want to
got-
make sure that the pastor has enough time to have the floor to herself before we finish. So we're okay, but you get where I'm coming from.
I understand. I know how it goes. Listen, you've got to get my buddy, retired Presbyterian minister Kevin Frederick, back on, and you've got to get Pastor Clinton on at the same time to talk about Christianity, to talk about issues, to talk about
Yeah.
uh,
Believe me, I thought of that as we were talking about this intersection of politics and religion in the evangelical movement. I thought to myself, wow, I really need to send the recording of this program directly to Kevin, and then perhaps after New Year, or into the spring, although it's going to be a presidential year, it's going to be a heavy politic year, but we can take a Sunday that the pastor would possibly be able to revisit us, and we could get Kevin on as well. Randall is right. Pastor Clinton, Kevin's a retired pastor. He now travels the world. He's established how would I best say it? He did a ministry. I guess you would say it's a ministry in Central America, trying to end domestic violence where it is almost societally accepted. And go ahead. I'm sorry, Randall.
Okay. I know your church is in Philadelphia, and I know your congregation is in Philadelphia. You service them, your community. But it was interesting. I heard that you live in Upper Darby when you're talking about gun violence.
Right. I live in Upper Darby.
Upper Darby is the highest population of any of our 57 municipalities here in Delaware County, PA. It has more population than the third-class city of Chester, which at one time had a lot more population than Upper Darby. And it's right next to Philadelphia County, right next to Philadelphia City. So
yeah.
By going over in the suburbs, you live in what I call the first ring of suburbia. And then you get here in Delaware County, you get to Springfield, the second ring of suburbia. I'm out here by essentially other than age 10 and a half, moving from Kansas here to Delaware County. I've lived in Aston, Middletown, and now Brookhaven, here on the southwestern part of the county. And
Okay.
I'm down at the absolute southern end of Brookhaven borough, so I'm probably a mile away from Chester City. And Chester City is probably the most impoverished city in the country. It has greatest number of crash to steam air pollution plants. And Philadelphia County, Philadelphia City, we don't want it, man, because of the pollution. Now let's push it out to Chester to build this multi-billion-dollar hydrogen export terminal on the Delaware River. And the vast majority of them and poverty people in Chester, they get the worst. They have so much lead and cadmium, and I could down the list pushing out from these trash to sea plants. And I thought it was interesting talking about DDT. DDT is an absolute carcinogenic to human beings.
Causes cancer.
It from a chemical class of oil. That whole chemical class of oil is carcinogenic. And DDT was banned in 1948 for causing cancer in children and adults, elderly. And yet, when I was growing up my whole life, my mother, after we say our prayer every night, to Christ and our Lord. We'd always say, don't let the bed bugs bite you. Parents being growing up during Depression, etc., they had bed bugs. And DDT wiped them out across the country. It wiped it out across the world.
Yes, it did.
Wiped out the mosquitoes across all areas in all the subtropical and tropical countries around the world. But it wasn't just animals who was bad. It was really, really bad for humans. And then another class, another application of that oil-based chemical class that causes cancer was put on farmers used to kill as a pesticide. And it was banned by EPA in 1972. And across our country in our farming bill, it's still showing up, a lesser version of DDT. It's carcinogenic. That's why everything in this country related to that chemical class of petroleum derivatives is banned. The last thing that was banned was creosote. What did we use creosote? Oh, we made creosote railroad tracks. We made creosote pilings in the ocean. That's gone now too. The last two things use creosote products from that chemical class. But in any case, what I'm really getting to is Chester is in a worse dire state in the sense of economics, in the sense of pollution. However, my Democratic gay, Jack, who has just won his second and final election as district attorney in Philadelphia, he is reduced for the 2 years. He has reduced the gun violence in Chester by 37%. So you should talk to Delaware DA about how that has been achieved in Chester.
So you're saying that the gun violence is reduced in Chester, or are you suggesting that the gun violence has reduced by 30% in Philadelphia?
No, I'm saying talk to the district attorney here in Delaware County and find how they achieve that working with their local community.
Let me hold on a sec. Give me 1 second, Randall. How important is what Randall just mentioned to you as a faith leader? You're a community leader. Is there enough communication going on between faith leaders and political leaders and labor leaders and are those bridges of communication still there? Do they need to be rebuilt? Do they need to be strengthened? You as a faith leader should be able to approach the DA and in Chester County or Delaware County and say, how did you do this, and how can I either take the whole thing or elements of it through to my congregation? The same way I think the DA should be able to come to you and say, hey, the neighborhood around your congregation has gotten very peaceful. What have you done? Are those lines of communication still open, or do they need to be strengthened? Should they be at all?
Well, I think that they could be a lot better. I don't think that churches are communicating as much as they could be. I don't think that as leaders, we're talking to them about what's going on in the community, because a lot of times we don't know. We as leaders will go into our four walls, we talk to our congregation, and we feel like we've done our job, but there's a level of outreach that has to happen so that we know what's going on, other than what a parishioner will tell you. Hey, pastor, they were shooting in my neighborhood, or hey, did you hear about the shooting? I think that we should if we know what's going on in the community or in our neighborhoods, especially your own neighborhoods, then it makes it better. Pastors should talk to each other, talk to there's my grandmother used to say, she was an evangelist. There are many ways to get lines of communication going. It has to start with not just talking to your congregation, but talking to other pastors about what's going on in their congregations. We need to have discussions about what's going on in the community. And then they used to have in Philadelphia, Mantua against drugs, and they built this task force, and they were, remember that, where they were on the corners and they take back the streets and take back the city. Well, all of that came to a halt, a decade and a half ago, or maybe now about 2 decades ago. And I think that some of these things that we were doing in the past that were successful, we need to be revisiting. Churches would do street services. They go on people's neighborhoods and they'd set up a microphone, and some other preachers would come and they pass out tracts and they pass out food and water, and they talk about Jesus and talk about getting involved in the community and what's going on. And, and then they started participating in town meetings. I know a lot of our politicians in Philadelphia, we hold town meetings. I know Representative Green, because I've attended some of her town meetings. So I think that clergy has to work, and pastors say, well, we're not supposed to be involved in politics, but we are a brother's keeper, and we are our community's keeper in a way. So we have to know what's going on. I'm not telling pastors to get out there and campaign for people, but I'm saying that we may need to visit communities and start having the conversation so that when you go to your leader, you have something to tell them. Hey, you're a representative in this leader. I just had a street service over here, or, we're feeding the poor over here. Where can people go to get food, or how can we get more assistance?
Well, you muted yourself. You bumped you.
Some things are it's mommy. Some things are necessary for us to get involved with so that we can impact the community in a better way. And I dare say that hasn't been happening as much as it should be.
All right, Randall, you got 2 more minutes before I gotta let you go.
I know. Pastor Clinton,
Yes.
thank you for your service, number one, as a minister. And I hope Jeff can get it together in the future where my friend, Minister Kevin Fredericks, and you, and hopefully, well, I have a couple other minister friends, Episcopalian, I get that list. But anyway, hopefully you can get a show together with all of you on talking about Christianity and social issues.
That would be wonderful.
I love you, lady. I'm a 71-year-old. But thank you for coming on Jeff's show, number one, and thank you. I can't believe it's been almost 3 hours.
Blessed is an understatement. Yeah.
Now pastors talk for a living. We're used to it.
Jeff, I'll talk to you soon. God bless everybody, and good night.
Hey, listen, Randall, you and your family, please. I wish you a peaceful, relaxing whatever you choose to do this Thanksgiving holiday and holiday weekend. I hope it's just a wonderful weekend for you. And please, to you and all yours, stay healthy, okay?
And I God bless you, Jeff. You, Kristen, have a wonderful with yourselves or your extended family for Thanksgiving. We're going to have extended family here. And the same goes for you, Reverend Clinton. You
praise God.
with
God
your
bless
family.
you.
All right, Randall. Good night, my friend. Take care.
Bye.
Good night.
He's right. I would say it's remarkable that he said that, because I was thinking it as the program has progressed. That we've had Kevin Frederick on the program twice, I think now, and I very humbly invite you and to go back through our YouTube channel and find the shows with him.
Okay.
Kevin is a man of the cloth. He's a retired pastor, but he is a scholar, and he's a real scholar. And I think having you both here would be a fascinating conversation, not because I don't think you disagree a hell of a lot, but I just think there'd be different, you're coming from different areas, and you are a woman of color. He is a white male, and you from different parts of the country. And I just think it would be a fascinating discussion. It's really awesome that he thought of that, because I was thinking of it repeatedly as we go through the program. We have 9 minutes left before I hand it off to the Villain's View at 9 p.m. Those final 9 minutes, Pastor, I want to give to you. If there is anything that you did not get to talk about that maybe you wanted to, an answer you didn't get to fully suss out, how do people find your ministry, find the church? And then, if I might really impose upon you before we sign off, if you could offer us a prayer before we leave.
That would be wonderful. Well, one of the things that, I think that we've got to talk about everything, but one of the things that I did want to touch on was um, people who find themselves in situations where they have loved ones that become ill and they've asked God to heal them and the healing doesn't come. It is a very difficult thing to navigate through, because no one wants to see their loved one leave, or whomever they're praying for, And I have also faced that, where I'm praying, asking God to do something, and it doesn't happen. And Lord, I prayed and I did this and I did that. And you said the prayer of faith will save the sick. Not always. Not always does it happen. And the coming into the understanding of that sometimes it is time to let go and to allow God to take the person that means the most to you is hard. And, when my father, my biological father, passed away, I was on the radio, in the radio station. I just couldn't go on. It hurt so much. And I remember them, telling them that my father had passed away. I was on my way back to Philadelphia and all that. And it was the hardest thing was to reconcile that. But what gave me peace was knowing that he accepted Christ and I was going to see him again, even though it hurt, because there was things I wanted to say to my dad that I didn't get to say. There was, I wondered if, he died on the table at the hospital because he had a heart attack. And there was things like I went through guilt because I wasn't there. And, all of these emotions came at me at one time. But then I realized that with all the things that I prayed and I asked God to say, my father was an atheist, ironically enough, my biological, and he accepted Christ 3 weeks before he passed away. He was led to Christ by a cousin of mine who was a pastor, and they ran into each other. And he said to him, all these years, you've rejected Christ, and he still comes and he still knocks. Maybe it's time to open. And I don't know what about what he said moved my father, but my father said, yeah, he shook his head. He said, it's time. And he didn't know that 3 weeks later he was going to leave here, but God knew. And so sometimes we have to understand that it's all about God's timing, everything. And we don't know when our time is done. So the Bible says to teach us to number our days that we may apply our hearts unto wisdom, meaning live each day with the possibility that it could be your last. Do all that you can to help while you can. Tell people you love them when you can. Hug somebody. The family member that you're mad at, that you think this is so important because they stole Aunt Bessie's fur coat and she left it to you in a will, and now you're mad and you don't talk to this person. You don't know when it's going to be the last time. And some things that we fight about, and I'm saying this because the holiday season, in 3 days, you're going to have people fill your house, cousins that you don't talk to normally. Some things should be put aside or let go of, because we don't know when we'll get a chance to see this person again, or if we'll see them again. So I would say let love guide you, and let faith guide you, and forgiveness guide you, and long suffering. Sometimes there's a cousin that irritates you, or an uncle or aunt. We can bear it. You have enough love in your heart to bear it, because kindness always makes sense. It doesn't cost anything to be kind. And it's the best choice. It's the godly choice. And I just wanted to kind of say that so that it can resonate with people, because I know Some of us are short-tempered and we get easily irritated, but love bears all things, it endures all things, it hopes all things. Love never fails.
How do folks
that's
find you, follow your ministry, and follow the church, follow your radio show? How do they find you? We have about 3 minutes before I have to say goodbye.
Well, you can email me at giaclinton2@gmail.com. We have an online presence right now because we're looking for a building. After COVID, it was a little hard to get our footing again because we didn't own the building we were in. So we are now looking for a building. But we have a strong online presence right now, and I do take speaking engagements, and I go out and speak, and I have a couple of churches that are affiliates with me that I get to preach at, and I put a lot of things online, and I do Facebook Live to preach. So, COVID was such a devastating thing, but we're recovering. And I think we're recovering as a nation too. It's not gone, but
No,
we're starting to get back to normal.
no, numbers are actually on the rise nationwide.
I heard, I did hear.
And we still lose on average about 500 folks a week nationwide from COVID specifically. So it's not gone.
No, no.
Well, let me tell you what I tell all of our guests, especially new guests, because the repeat guests are already warned. I have one bit of bad news for you.
What's that?
And that is you are part of our family now.
Oh.
So it is my deep hope that this is not the only time that you come to visit us. And when you come to visit us again, you need not be here for 3 full hours. If you need 5 minutes or 10 minutes or something that you believe that our audience really needs to hear, the keys to the castle are yours. You are welcome on these airwaves with me anytime. You are part of our program's family now. To say thank you is minuscule in how grateful I am to you for the amount of time that you spent and for being willing to reschedule and even come here in the first place. We do reach about 250,000 people worldwide, but we're certainly not the biggest program in the world. And yet you came here and gave us your time anyway. And any words of thanks I might offer would seem way too small, but please know that it means the world to me. It does. We live on the kindness of folks. We don't pay people to come here. So, we live on folks' kindness, and you have done nothing other than display and share your kindness with us. Your words have been powerful, and I'm just immensely grateful to you. I wish you and your family and your congregation the absolute happiest of Thanksgivings. I hope you have a wonderful holiday season. You really should travel north up to Bethlehem. It is a Christmas city. It is magical at Christmas.
Oh, I've heard about it. I would love to see it.
It would be a miracle. It would be lovely to meet you in person and to see my church. I think Central Moravian would speak to you in a lot of ways. I think the center of the Moravian faith in North America would speak to you in a lot of ways. So I put those 2 humble invitations out to you. We are under 60 seconds before I turn off and say goodnight to you. The Villain's View comes up live at 9 p.m. Their pre-show is already on Facebook. They come live on hot101.net and literally watching the seconds countdown so I know when to turn the software off, and let Sergeant Mac take over for you. He is live at 9 p.m. We will not be with you next week. Please have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful Thanksgiving. I go off the radio here in just a moment. We'll stay on Facebook. Let the pastor offer a prayer. For all of you on hot101.net, happy Thanksgiving. The Villain's View starts right now. For a Facebook audience, pastor, a prayer, if you would be so kind. And then you can tell all your friends about how this guy wouldn't leave me alone for 3 hours.
Well, Father, we thank you for your time, and we thank you for your presence. We thank you for the spirit of unity and a bond of peace. Go with your people and be with them, Father. Bless them this holiday season. Unite them, Father, under one voice, one banner. Let them feel your presence and your arms around them, Father, as they embrace family and friends for laughter and fellowship. In Jesus' name, amen.
I wish you the most wonderful of holidays. And I meant what I said. I know you're a busy lady, but if you can come see our Christmas city
I would love that.
you
And
have
thank you so
friends.
much for the invitation.
Yeah,
I would
you have friends here. I'd
want
love
to.
for Kristen and I we'll take you around, and we'll break bread together, and I it it the city is magic. I find it spiritual. I truly do. I find it more than just Santa and holly bushes and pretty lights and thing. I do find it, it was founded by Bethlehem and the Lehigh Valley were founded by the Moravian faith, and Central Moravian Church is the central of the church of the faith in North America. The theological seminary is in Bethlehem. I went to Moravian University. Well, it was college then. Now it's a university. That's how long ago it was. But it is magic. It really is magic. I find it really quite spiritual. I think when you go on Main Street and everything's lit up and there's so many folks enjoying it, and it's just pretty and it's magic.
I would
It just
love to
is.
see the town, and I would love to meet you in person. So please, please send me directions. Let's look at some dates. I
Well,
would love to absolutely
I
see
know that you're very busy on Sundays. But as we
but
talked about during
Sunday off.
yeah, well, I mean, as we talked about during the program, I think it would be a learning experience if folks of different faiths visited different houses of worship
Yes,
and extended
I
that.
agree. It's a
Felt
wonderful
so
experience.
so Kristen and I went to services at Central Moravian today. It was a communion service today, and very much in the Moravian faith, pastor said this communion is for anybody. No rules. If you wish to partake, we are here for you. And he
That's
was going
amazing.
through the calendar. We're doing this, we're doing that, we're doing this, we're doing this. And there is no one who is not welcome here. No matter what you look like, how rich you are, everyone is welcome within these walls. And right next to Central Moravian Church, there is a cemetery, which is not unusual for older churches in the Northeast to have a cemetery. The Moravian Cemetery is the first one in the country where white, black, poor, rich, children, women, men were all buried together. And for those who were not Moravian, it was quite a scandal. How can you bury an escaped slave, a woman next to, because they're all equal in the eyes of God? And they shall rest together, equal in the eyes of God. And I think you would get being, so steeped in faith as you are for generations, as you explained to us. I think you'd quite enjoy yourself. I think
I
you'd
think
find
I
it.
would too.
Yeah, I think you'd find it a scholarly endeavor as much as an endeavor of faith. And pastor at Central Moravian is just a remarkable man. He's from Africa. He's a remarkable man.
Wow.
It speaks to our faith to see this gentleman who has immigrated here from Africa leading the congregation at the central church of our faith in this hemisphere. It is really, I think it says everything about the Moravian denomination and our faith that this is the gentleman. And he's a really special man. And Kristen and I are desperately hopeful that we will be married there, next year when our time comes. But I think you'd find it a very scholarly and very enriching trip, and the invitation is open to you. I know we're kind of already deep into the holiday season. It's holiday week, and I know that the Christmas time is very busy for folks, not just for people of faith, but just people, period. The shopping and the visiting and the so on. But please know that the invitation's open to you. I think you'd really enjoy yourself. It'd be an honor for Kristen and I to meet you in person and sit and break bread with you and continue to talk and get to know each other. I think it would just be a magical thing and a really enriching thing. And I hope you'll consider it.
I will, because I would love to do that over the Christmas holiday, at least take a Sunday and come visit. I love small towns. My heart is in a small town.
Mm.
They're magical. They're beautiful because it's such a small community. They tend to be very close knit, and I've always admired that. So
Well,
I would love to. Please send me directions or addresses, and I would maybe look at maybe the second Sunday in December as a way of trying to come up to see it. I would absolutely love it, and I would love the fellowship.
yeah, we'll check ours too. I know we're away on call. There's a couple weird things. Well, I'm in Harrisburg for uh state Democratic committee. I'm a member of the state Democratic committee.
Okay.
Very, very honored to have been elected to that from Northampton County. And so that weekend, I hate that they're doing it right before Christmas. We're going to lose a weekend there, but it's anyway, I'm prattling a bit, but it's please know that the invitation's open. I think I really do think, given the conversations we've had, not just tonight, but offline, I really do think you would find it a very fulfilling trip, head, heart, and soul. So it's open. I'll send, whatever, or tell me what information you need offline. We'll do that. But again,
Okay. Sure.
it's after 9. This is crazy how long you've been here. You did not need to be here this long. I almost feel bad about it, but it's one of the strengths of our program. I think we don't have a lot of long conversations. We don't drill to even, when Tom Hartman does have guests, it's 7 minutes and they're out.
Wow.
We don't always get to drill, but then again, he's got, 20 something million people listening and I don't. So he's doing something right that I'm not, but you do get to drill down a little bit and dig deeper into these things and have meaningful, learned, extended conversations. You have been, like I said, to say you've been gracious with your time is a dreadful understatement. You've been beyond kind with your time, and I do sincerely, the door's open to you. I really do want to have you back.
Well, I would love it.
On
Anytime
a,
you guys want me back, just call me. And I would
because
love to have an opportunity to talk with another minister and
I
converse. It would be
Randall's
wonderful.
100% right. That would be a fascinating conversation. It really would. I really do think people would learn a lot from it. I really do. I think they'd learn a lot.
Well, now they all know I'm Democratic.
Yeah.
Well, you could probably tell by the way I spoke that I was Democratic.
Well, like I said, I don't personally, I don't understand how every member of the clergy is, and it is.
Right,
It's
exactly.
simply closer. We're not perfect. We're so not perfect as a party. We
No,
have
I
our work to do.
know. I
We
know. But
really
we're a
do.
work in
I try to
progress.
do that work. I try to do that work from inside the party. I try to make better candidates. I try to pick better candidates. I try to make and spread the message. We're the only functioning political party left in the country. A democracy demands at least two, and we're in a perilous situation when we don't have two. But we're
That's
the
right.
only ones left. We really are. And it was very, he didn't say it because I said it. I'm not that smart. But former member of the House of Representatives, Adam Kinzinger, was on with Bill Maher this weekend and said, I hope every Democrat in every office across the country wins in 2024 because they're the only ones that care about democracy. They're the only, and he said flat out, they're the only functioning political party left in the country.
It's the
And
truth.
we need them to win. And it would seem to me, as much as I do believe in Jefferson's vision of a separation and the establishment clause, of course, that the government shall not establish a religion. These are faith-based arguments. They really are. We're the party that wants everyone to vote. We're the party that wants, when they call us radical as a party, we do want radical things. We want radical things like we want you to see a doctor.
Right.
We want your kids' school to not have the roof collapsing in around
Exactly.
and their teachers to actually be paid a fair wage. We want you to vote. We want you to be able to afford a car. We'd like you to be able to take a vacation every year because your job actually pays you enough that you can do that.
And have affordable housing.
Right up until the Nixon era, it took for a family of four, the very, very traditional stereotypical family of four, mom, dad, son, daughter, dog. You know, it took 1.2 full-time jobs to sustain that family. Car, food, education, clothing, housing, all of it. 1.2. It's about, maybe dad worked about 45 hours a week. It now takes 2.6.
Wow. God.
That's, see, to me, without trying to blur the lines too much, there's nothing Christian in that to me.
That's right. That's right.
It's not moral. Franklin Roosevelt wanted to add 10 more amendments to the Constitution. He wanted an economic Bill of Rights. The first 10 amendments to the Constitution are largely political rights. They're largely justice-related rights. You have a right to an attorney and a jury trial, and freedom of speech and religion, and to petition your government. They're largely, you can't incriminate yourself. They're largely political rights. He wanted a second Bill of Rights. It was an economic Bill of Rights. So you had a right to health care. You had a right to a job. You had a right to a home. You had a right to a vacation. We're the party that's striving for that. We're not always achieving it. God knows we're not, but we're the only ones working toward it.
It's the
So
truth.
that, it's why I do what I do. It's why I feel the way I feel. But please go have some dinner or go to bed or cuddle up your cat or whatever.
I know. I just
You
let her
on a
out of the
Sunday
room.
night.
She was sulking in her little condo. She needs to be brushed.
Thank you again. They're small words, but thank you again. Please come visit us, and please come visit us on the show and come visit us in person.
I will. That is
Have
a
a
promise.
wonderful, wonderful, wonderful night.
You as well. Enjoy your holiday. God bless you both. You and your
Thank you so
sweetheart.
much.
All righty.
We've done all
Bye-bye.
the damage we can do for those of you remaining on Facebook and YouTube. We've done all the damage we can do for another week. We're all done. Ran a little over. We did turn off, Sergeant Mac is live right now on hot101.net. Check him out as well. We've done all the damage we can do for everyone at TCP Media Group. Taekwon, Andrew, Whitney, and Marquise, for everyone at hot101.net, DJ Lex, DJ Earl, Chino, everybody at Hot 101, the entire hot101.net family, for George and Lindare, and for, of course, I didn't even mention that April Riddick won her election. She is now a Lehigh County Commissioner elect. She'll be sworn in and seated in January, but we'll talk to her more about that. And of course, for Daisy the dog, Guy the cat, and my dear Kristen downstairs, that's it for the Kennedy Effect for November. We will not be with you next week. We return to you on December 3rd. That's the plan, December 3rd. Have a great Thanksgiving. I hope it is peaceful, relaxing. I hope it fills the spirit as well as the stomach. And just be kind, give thanks, and remember those who cannot. Help out, donate food, donate time, whatever it is over this Thanksgiving holiday, but share the bounty. I'm Jeff Kennedy. Have a great, great, great holiday. We will see you on December 3rd. Take care of yourselves and each other.